continues in suburban Philadelphia with his accuser on the witness stand.
Cosby's defense lawyer grilled Andrea Constand for a second day, questioning her about discrepancies between her police report and phone records, asking her why she spent so much time with a married man and never asked about his wife, questioning why she maintained contact with him after the day she claimed he sexually assaulted her and even called him twice on Valentine's Day. Constand didn't flinch. She said on that Valentine's Day she was returning his calls, and the conversation was about the Temple University women's basketball team. As for Cosby's wife, Constand said she didn't ask about her because it was none of her business. I'm Steve Kastenbaum.
TV sitcom actor Harry Anderson is...
This is True Frequency Radio.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
We get off track here, but I feel like we're in the Truman Show, and we're in a snow building, and just took it up. perspective issue is why you're seeing kind of like optical. So the problem is when you go looking for the time-lapse sunset, you always get people who turn the camera off, which makes sense. You are filming a sunset. The sunset, the turn the camera off and you go home. The videos that we have seen, that maybe are left on just a little bit longer, like you and I were watching the night bed, occasionally you see a little bit of a light that seems to be going off and down, which is interesting. But every time right when we're about to see, very kind. So the question would be, if you have a GoPro or you've got your T900, the T900 I think has a 2-hour time-lapse function, and the only thing you said, you'd have to start it like right at sunset, almost right when you touches the horizon, and then start it from there, and then take the 2 hours after that. And then we're just trying to see if we can get new rounds of this time heading back to the right. So if you could do that, that'd be awesome. You can email them to me, or just email them to me if you have one. I would love to see it. Even if it does show slightly. Collecting evidence. So, yeah, that's something I want to thank everyone who joined me last night for my first ever patrons-only live stream. It was entitled Evolve, and it was long, and it was 3.5 to 4 hours. That video is up on my website for patrons, so I appreciate everybody who joined me. And I just wanted to mention again, with something, not being censored is but being serious. Very free. I'm so afraid of what can I say when YouTube go with that and say that that's not allowed, or they're not going to leave my channel for this. And so just to give a heads up of why I'm doing this, I missed the end of the show last week. The reason that or at least that I've changed the way I'm looking at things, is because the way that YouTube is going, the direction it's headed, it seems like a censorship era is coming. And I don't think YouTube owes me anything, because one of the things I looked at yesterday or thought about is, I wouldn't be able to do what I did yesterday. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. We wouldn't be able to be having this show if it wasn't for YouTube. And so YouTube has been a huge answer to us, or a big help, in the fact that now I can post a video and have 10,000 people see it right away or within a day. That's something that we wouldn't have had that opportunity 4 years ago. There's just no way. So I think that I owe YouTube a little bit, and they don't owe me anything. So it's their platform. They can do what they want. If they want to censor people's voices, that's fine. Censor for that. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to create some way that I can protect my content from being taken down by YouTube. At the same time, use YouTube on my 90-something thousand subscribers, so that I don't lose that channel and I still have the ability to have that loud voice when need be. I also wanted to reward people that have taken care of us through Patreon for the last year and a half, because I'm able to spend about 2/3 of my week on truth-related information, studying, researching, reading, making videos. And yeah, we would love to be doing this full time. And that should go without saying, I guess. What's better than doing what you think is changing the world, doing what you love, and making money while doing it? I think everybody in the world would love to make money doing what they love. And it's very few people who ever do that. And so if we could ever be one of those people, that would be a blessing. And we're not far, but we're not very close either. At the time, since we've moved, we pay a lot less in rent now, and just about, I think right now we're at $1,000 in patrons, which is awesome. That's a huge help. And thank you very much. And our bills are only like $3,000 a month, and we're combined with all the other YouTube accounts, close to $1,000 in ad revenue. So we really just like $1,000 off of being able to do this full time. So that's impressive. I did want to thank, I did thank them last night, but I'll thank again. Somebody people might not know the story behind it, but Bob Xanadu 60, who has hosted for what about the channel? What would you say, year and a half? 2 years. Yeah, he's probably hosted for 2 years. And he has never asked for a penny from that channel. And it doesn't make a lot, $200, maybe $200 a month or something. But he has never ask for a penny. What a big help. He says he does it for me. Because remember, one time I went to him and actually said, I don't think I want to do board buses anymore. I'm going to kind of stop the show. And he said, well, what if I post it and you just come on every single day? I said, well, I could do that. I could wake up at Sunday and come on the show. And so when it did start making $100 return, I said, do you want me to send you some of that money or what? He said, no, I do this for you. And I just think that's awesome. It's something that people don't know. That Bob's been a huge help. He bought us that laser, the original laser that we then sent back to him. But he's been awesome. So I want to thank Bob for always being there and looking out for us and helping us out when we needed. So thank you very much, Bob. And besides that, everybody else. Oh yeah, there's so many people that have donated in one way or another, and we thank everybody. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for everybody. It's really been a huge help. At the same time, I think that from what I've gathered from people's emails or messages, is some of them see what I do as a service to them, and that's why they're interested in helping out, because a lot of people want to research, want to look into things, but they don't have time. And so it's kind of a trade-off to where they support me so that I spend my time on the research, and they can do their normal stuff that they need to do in their lives, and then they can come to me for my research as I basically report back. And that's a tough thing to get to because, and I've seen a lot of them say, it took me 2 years of watching you until I trusted you. Or it took me a long time until I recognized that what you were doing was an attempt to find the truth. And so I appreciate that this time. Hearing that is awesome, that people recognize that because there is no other ulterior motive. People think, oh, you're doing it for the money. If you think that we started Flat Earth for money, it's quite funny.
You don't understand what you live.
No, it's been 3 years, and at this point, with all the shows that we do and putting in all the time and effort that we have, it's still not something that can even pay the bills completely. So, if it ever does come to that point, well, then I'm thrilled because, again, then I see it as such a win-win. I do think we're changing the world. I can just look at the way people look at the mainstream media now, how they're calling into question all these false flag attacks, something that wouldn't have happened 5 years ago. And while we look at them, I see that they are just getting so obvious. And I have to remember 2 or 3 years ago to where it wasn't so obvious, but I could start to see it. So I think there's a lot of people who are just starting their path, who are where we were 2 or 3 years ago. And it's taken Trump being put into office, and it's taken a lot of the stuff to come out about the crookedness of Washington, D.C. And it may not be seen now, but the results of all that will be coming. It may be slow. Nothing is ever an overnight change. So I think that we are making a difference in the world. We can continue to make a difference in the world. And if I can do that full time and make money doing it, then I don't see any issue with that at all. So that's just me. I still would do the same thing I've always done. I will put out videos on YouTube when I feel like they are safe. And it's not against the YouTube rules or whatever. And then I will continue to put out live streams on YouTube when I feel the same way. We will continue to do this show, which is always free. A lot of people say, well, it costs money to listen to the archives, which is true, but you should be joining us every Monday night from 6 to 9 to midnight Eastern for TFR, in which case it is never going to cost you any at all to listen to the most fantastic show, basically in the history of radio.
Wow. Hey,
you know?
you're talking back.
Oh, sorry. Well, that was an opinion. But,
Oh, yes.
I'm not biased. I listen to a lot of radio shows.
Yeah, me too.
No.
Every joke before this was better.
This one we're struggling a little bit. Yeah, this one was a little struggle fest, but you go back in the archives and you would have to pay I think it's $10 a month, but not only do you get every show that we've ever done, you get every show ever done by Chris and Shregia, by Susan Lindauer, by Brooke Dagnan, by Mark Sargent, by Lucky One, and Rob Steele, and Zen Garcia, and you get Zachary Hubbard, all the other, Chris Everard, to go on and on and on and on. Tons of shows, and you get the entire archive all for $10 a month. And the way that the station operates is completely on the funding of its listeners. So if you sign up and you signed up under our little page, then we get 50% of that. And that's a very small amount for us, but I mean, it's still, if we get $50 a month, that's extra that's Catherine. So we appreciate everybody who has signed up under our name or our moniker. And then the station provides on making the other 50%. So one of the huge things for us, and I can praise this all the time, when we got asked if we were interested in doing a show, the very first question out of my mouth was, what are the content rules? What can we can't say? Yeah. Expecting them to kind of give us a list. And then me saying, sorry, we're not interested.
You want to be able to freely, proper list.
Absolutely. And that was kind of a big point of when we started YouTube. It was like, man, I'm getting away with saying anything I want. I can say anything. As long as I don't do hateful things, bullying, which I agree with. The problem is that when YouTube is now going and just attaching that label to things that are clearly not. If anybody's ever watched any of my videos, I've never been hateful, I've never been bullying, I've never incited violence, I've never said, let's go firebomb the NASA building. It's just not me, it's not who I am.
Although it would be official, we're not just kidding.
I'm not saying that it wouldn't be. But I'm not advocating for it.
No, you're not. And you can say whatever you want on YouTube as long as you don't have a large following. They don't care if you're talking crazy things or if you have 5 people watching you.
That's true. I think when you start to get a little bigger, then they start keeping a little more close eye on you.
Yeah.
But the moral of that story is that when Chris said, no, there's no content, you have complete content control. I mean, it didn't take us but a second to say we're in.
Said you can talk about the Jews? Like, yep.
Yeah, it was a question. And that was so impressive to us. And so I know that everyone else on the station has the same rules. And that was so impressive to me. That's why I like the station. And I've talked about this before, but I remember somebody at one point either asked Chris or asked me or something. I don't remember who asked or how they asked, but they said, how can you call this station True Frequency Radio if you've got one show on Monday nights because you're flat and you've got Zach on Wednesday nights and you're here for the ball? And the answer was beautiful, and it was that both people are being honest in their opinion. And that should be hugely important to anybody listening, because you're not going to find that other places. You turn on any other station, and for the most part, you're not getting the person's opinion on the radio. You're getting whoever handed them the script, whoever they're working for. If it's news, then you're going to get basically the same thing that goes out to the AP that everybody reads. So it is True Frequency Radio in the fact that you're getting true and honest opinions from all of the hosts. So please support the station if you can. Support Chris and Sheree. They've set up a nice little station here. I think it's got 34 or 35 different shows right now, and a lot of the shows are fantastic. Some of them broke down. No, I love this. I do want to talk to all those people and say, okay, let's see here. Let's iron this out now, shall we? No, we're all good friends. We don't hate the other person. We just have different opinions, and I love hearing other people's opinions. That's what I think is impressive about being a human. And what I find most strange about people who listen to me and then like, I have a different opinion than you. Yeah, but you should. And the great thing is that we can hear other people's opinions, and then that helps us shape our life. That helps us shape our beliefs. And if we've only had our own experiences, then it would be hard to really know how the world works, is the way that you see it like everyone else. And so I love hearing other people. I mean, we talk all the time where I ask you questions, right? How do you see this? Or what do you think about this? Because I just think that helps me form my opinion much easier.
Getting other people's perspectives is important.
Yep. If not, then you can just tell people they all live on the top of the ball, and there's no other perspective is needed. It's just you always looking downhill in every direction.
You and your 2D image.
Yeah, you say, what about this guy? How does he, is that person above him? No, he's also on the top of the ball. Just a constant rotation of the ball. Everybody's at the top. It's pretty bad. So we have a few things we want to go through tonight. First of all, I wanted to go through some of the crazy news. First one, which was just hilarious, and I had to laugh a little butt off here. Astronauts' DNA no longer matches twins after a year in space.
So basically, Scott Kelly and the other Kelly.
Well, now this is the article that, this is the article that came out the 15th, which was 3 or 4 days ago. And then since then, I've seen new articles saying, despite what you've heard, he is still a twin.
This is like a double report.
Yeah, it's really
weird DNA change, but then a
retraction. And let me read you part of this AOL article because it's hilarious. This is the AOL article from March 15th, written by Jessica Chia. Says astronaut DNA no longer matches twins after years. So I'm just going to read the first kind of paragraph here because it says something hilarious. It says, astronomer Scott Kelly, as I was reading it, I'm like, am I reading this correctly? Astronomer Scott Kelly spent a year in space and returned a changed man. Kelly, who lived on the International Space Station, while his identical twin, Mark Kelly, stayed on Earth, returned after 340 days with 7% of his genes altered, according to NASA. The shocking transformation means Scott is no longer genetically identical to his twin. Scott, who shared his own surprise over the latest NASA twin study results, tweeted, "What? My DNA changed by 7%? Who knew? I just learned about it in this article."
What? How did they know what his DNA did if they didn't? It wasn't there for them to.
So how am I reading the article that he said, "Who knew? I just learned about it in this article"? But he's in the article. Did he read that line as he read it? So like he read it as it was written? Or?
I wouldn't have included that. That was her.
No, it's very good article written. So then if you look up from that point, look up NASA DNA, and we'll see that there's been a change. Space did not permanently alter former NASA astronaut's DNA, just according to The Verge. There's a lot of miscommunication going around. This article starts off by Lauren Rush. Several stories this week have proclaimed that the DNA of former NASA astronaut Scott Kelly changed during his years living on the International Space Station. The stories say that 7% of his genes did not return back to him when he came back to Earth. It makes it seem as if the space environment permanently altered his genetic code. The problem?
Who made up this one?
It's said according to NASA in the other article, so I don't know if people are just saying that because it means people have to listen to you or something.
I don't know, or maybe there's that's a mistake by NASA. They were like, no, that can't happen because we want the space problem. I don't know what the problem is there.
But the mistake stems from an inaccurate interpretation of NASA's ongoing twin study. When Scott went to space in 2015, his identical twin, Mark, also a former NASA astronaut, married to Gabby Gifford, who won the vote stayed on the ground. The idea was that Mark would serve as a control subject, nearly identical genetic copy that NASA could use to figure out how the space environment changed Scott's body. I'm just thinking about that. Why would you need twins? If you take somebody, you look at their makeup before they go to space, and then you look at them around. That's probably the best way to get a copy of what somebody was. Some fascinating results have come out of the experiment. For one thing, Scott's gut bacteria changed significantly when he was in space, and yes, he did experience genetic changes. The protective cap on the end of his DNA strands, known as telomeres, increased while in space, but space didn't permanently alter 7% of his DNA. A person's DNA is in their body's genetic code. The pattern and sequence of genes that make up the blueprint of the body. When a person's DNA is altered, that means the pattern of their genes in their body's cells has been rearranged in some way. Perhaps some genes swap with another, parts of the genetic code are removed, and new parts are added. External forces like ultraviolet radiation from the sun or smoke from cigarettes can cause DNA mutations.
So then what? Where's the source?
I don't know. Let's just face it. Let me show you how nonsense NASA is. This is all this week, by the way. We're not like going back in time to find stories. This week. This is a story that says there's a new phenomenon called Steve, a mystery purple aurora that rivals the northern lights. Now, when you hear this story, you can really know. A group of citizen scientists from Alberta, Canada, were not sure what the glowing purple, sometimes green arc in the night sky that they had been photographing was. Nor were the scientists Elizabeth McDonald, a space physicist at NASA, and Eric Donovan, an associate professor of physics and astronomy at the University of Calgary, the group known as the Alberta Aurora Chasers, who photographed the aurora borealis and northern lights, showed them in pictures in a pub. It wasn't, Donovan told them, a proton aurora. The northern lights are normally a result of electrons colliding with gases in the Earth's upper atmosphere, as they thought. They pulled up this beautiful photograph of the twins, Donovan told the New York Times last year, and I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it's not the proton aurora. The neither the name. Steve sounds as good as any. It was inspired by a scene from the 2006 animation Over the Hedge, in which the animal characters are confronted with a mysterious row of shrubs. I guess their name is Steve. Here's the funny thing. The phenomenon does now have a background. acronym of the official name. The now official name is STEVE, short for Strong Thermal Emission Velocity Enhancement. So they named these things STEVE because they're always called STEVE, and yet now they are Strong Thermal Emission Velocity Enhancement.
They named it Steve, and then not originally an acronym, and then they decided to turn it into an acronym.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's Strong Thermal Emission Velocity Enhancement. How would they get that listed?
How is it science?
What if they named it Dave? Would they
Maybe that just go along with that.
Well, how can you name if it's a Strong Thermal Emission Velocity Enhancement?
It would have been a dynamic.
Possibly. No, it's just crazy.
It's terrible. That's the worst story ever.
It says, last week NASA called on citizen scientists and photographers to help us with their research on the STEVE and report sightings to the Aurora Solar Project. Now, now we got NASA saying, this is the third article of hilariousness for the week. It's almost spring. And actually, the title of the article is first. Calling all cloud gazers. NASA needs your help. It's almost spring, the time of year when the looming change in seasons could lead to some pretty fascinating cloud activity in the sky. NASA and the GLOBE program are asking for your help by taking part in the Citizen Science Cloud Observation Challenge. From March 15th to April 15th, citizen scientists of all ages can make up to 10 cloud observations per day using the Globe Observer app or one of the other data entry points for trained GLOBE members. Challenge participants with the most observations will be congratulated by a NASA scientist.
And started my research. It's got cayenne. That's good for blood and circulation. It stimulates the blood flow. It's got garlic, which fights bacteria like antibiotics, and it lowers the cholesterol and blood pressure. It also has milk thistle, which is the best detox for liver. I couldn't wait to try it out, and I'm glad I did 4 months ago. And here's obvious results. My hands and feet don't get cold anymore. The varicose veins have faded too. My wrists don't hurt after typing all day. Now I tell you all this because it's true and I want you to really live life. Try Extendivite. Go to heartdrop.com and order it.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extend Global.
Hi folks, Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of We also carry unique, one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Rid yourself of the that contaminates your food and water. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Get the tea, your best defense.
Greetings, Earth Explorers. My name is Brooks Agnew, and I am your host on X Squared Radio every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. And this is where the past meets the future. We explore the mysteries of the universe and of the Earth. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. We will dissolve the propaganda of dangerous people with dangerous plans for the planet. We will discuss the latest technologies and challenges for humankind. We will discover the safest place for you to stand when the thinkings and doings of mankind come flying apart, and how you can be one of the people that helps put it back
Frequency Radio.
visual sensibility. But the story of influence isn't quite consistent. We should rewind to the mid-1960s to better understand some of this. This also has some crazy things to say about this. Number one, we are all alone for something like this. Artist Jeran has been doing impulsive poetic performances, living in houseboats, traversing the country in a Volkswagen boat for a few years before he set up in a quaint white church in upstate New York in 1965. His friend, artist Steve Berkey, had purchased the church with help from his art dealer Alan Stone, And there, Stern, Thirsty, and others, including the artists Lloyd, Judy Stern, and Barbara Durkee, hashed out ideas and worked on multimedia performances long before the term multimedia was widely used. They endeavored to create oversaturated, hallucinogenic experiences that promoted a heightened sense of wonder, or something like that. Always, it was in experiments, they employed slides, film projectors, and strobe lights. In the mid-1960s, the artist became the Company of the U.S., or USCO for short. The immersive traveling performance they honed over the years, We Are All One, helped them write it in the 1966 issue of the Life magazine. The full-page photos are seductive. Filmic images overlapping each other, teenagers dancing on art wallpaper. Coincidentally, as it turned out, they used the same projector NASA scientists would use at Mission Control during the Apollo mission. It's crazy. The way things have been going, psychedelic art is bound to come around. The article announced people own cameras, television appears to be here, they could say, we discovered LSD, and countries launched rockets. Why would an artist want to incorporate all that science, electronics, drugs, and film? Stuart Brand, a sometime member of the USPO, during one acid trip at the USPO church, Brand apparently scaled a high-voltage tower. Would become the most prominent counterfeature activist associated with NASA and images of Earth from space. So, this is our guy, Stuart Brand, crazy. Seeing the curve of Earth. Brand, a former Army parachutist, and a Stanford grad, began his Why Haven't We Seen a Whole Picture of the Earth campaign in 1965. As he tells it, he launched his campaign after he had a revelation on a gravelly roof in San Francisco. With the help of 100 micrograms of lysergic acid diethylamide, he told Rolling Stone in 1976, he began to believe he could see the whole Earth curving in on itself, and he watched the sky. A mentor of Brand's, architect Buckminster Fuller, had said that people perceived the Earth as flat and infinite, and that was the root of all their misbehavior. Brand thought that maybe prompting NASA, which he believed already had the satellite technology necessary, to take and release a photo of the Earth in space would give people the information they needed to behave more conscientiously in relation to the planet.
Can you repeat the two sentences before that again?
Sure. Starting with yes, the mentor of Brand, architect Buckminster Fuller, had said that people perceive the Earth as flat and infinite, and that was the root of all their misbehavior.
So that's why people don't want the Earth to be flat.
Yeah, Brand. So they think of it as flat and infinite, and they get ice going into the ball. It's a beautiful little ball. Yeah, so he just felt theorized. Brand thought that maybe prompting NASA, which he believed already had the satellite technology necessary to take and release a photo of Earth from space would give people the information they needed to behave more conscientiously in relation to the planet. He made little buttons with black text, and there's actually images in there. See this image?
Why haven't we seen a photograph of the Earth? This looks like something you would do.
And we should still have it. They made little buttons with black text against white backgrounds, and they stated simply, why haven't we seen a photograph of the whole Earth yet? And he sold them for $1 each. He would wear a white jumpsuit and a dark top hat with a heart and flower in it, and he'd distribute the buttons at UC Berkeley, MIT, and elsewhere. I put the button in kind of a paranoid tone, Brand said recently, speaking by phone from his home in Sausalito, California, because I knew it would get the attention. They became kind of a popular thing. The conversations his campaign generated were in large part to the point I sometimes have a spontaneous street symposium on thinking about what the image would do, he recalled. When NASA did release an image of the whole Earth in space taken by the ATS satellite in 1967, Brand put around the debut cover of his publication The Whole Earth Catalog. At home,
I just saw someone selling that on Craigslist. Whole Earth Catalog was and it was from like 1972 or something. I've never heard of it.
It says here 1967.
How funny those small.
Did you get it? At home, where readers could find tools that would help them build their own future-forward environments, as well as writings by hippies like Ken Smith. The catalog also had a holistic, data-driven design. The design's pervasive influence on the visual sensibility of the environmentally conscious left continues today. Not only in the environmental movement, but also in the visual identity of the tech industry, according to the recent New York Times article on designs for Apple and Google's retro new headquarters, you see around Circle J or whatever. Please continue with one more called the Earth Big Blue Marble. Like so many others, Brand embraces the idea that these national images jump-started Earth Day, and we know that to be true because the first Earth Day was in
April 1969.
which is crazy. And environmentalism, as we know it, he believes that they had the effect he expected. So he prefers the Earthrise image, a photograph taken by astronaut William Andrews during the Apollo 8 mission in 1968, in which our planet floats behind the moon, to the head-on blue marble shot, a dead planet in front of a living one. The living one in all its fragile smallness, he says. Earth is neither small nor fragile, of course, but that's a helpful way of thinking. Actually, the work of Brand and other artists and environmentalists, Buckminster Fuller, wrote in defense of Brand's campaign, predated NASA's decision to release the images. However, it's difficult to tell why, or what, if any, the influence they had on the space-age giant. The buttons circulated at NASA. Officials reportedly wore them on their lapels, but often the button campaign and the subsequent images are discussed almost as coincidences. They coincided, according to an article on Brand and USCO on the Museum of Modern Art's website. I'm not aware of any petitions that you mentioned, said NASA historian Bill Berry. When I asked him via an email about Brand's buttons, he made the conspiracy theories about NASA withholding information from the general public, but he assured me that that has never been the case. NASA archivist Colin Fry described the iconic blue marble image, like the Earthrise image that preceded it, as completely unplanned. There were no special instructions to the crew to take it, and nothing about the mission transcript confirmed it. Fry told me in an email. He then quoted a 5-year-old Atlantic article that described how an Apollo 17 crew member, probably astronaut Harrison Schmitt, looked out the window, saw the astonishingly beautiful planet, and photographed it with a happy dog camera. He didn't know until after his return that he'd taken the image that the world had never seen before. That is the insanity.
The fact that they're
brain.
The fact that they're making that situation so low to like so long, we don't even think about taking a picture. That's ridiculous. That's what we something that they want to their own ridiculous.
Okay, so think about this. Picture the Earth with no limit. Okay? Now, yeah, this is darkness or whatever. And then, picture that you go outside and you see these things. Isn't it just a shocking?
Yeah. It's like everything.
Yeah, it's only
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what, now you have a picture 4 times that size. So you're 4 times bigger than that. Well, if you're talking about, it's 4 times bigger. Volume, I think. Diameter, the Earth is 4 times bigger. And, according to that, I don't think it's
well, I mean,
yes. Right.
And that would mean brighter or 40 times.
It would be brighter. The inverse square law, so it's actually like 16 times brighter.
Right, and water is much more reflective than...
Right, so you'd have to add more than to the albedo of the so, I mean, looking out the window would not just... you happen to look out the window and see the planet, take a picture of it, and didn't know that nobody had ever seen that picture of the Earth before. Also, and I've said this story many, many times, did you know? This is the moment for Did you know? Do I have a time for Did you know?
Did you know?
I don't know if I have a time for keep saying that for you. Did you know?
Did you know?
Did you know?
Did you know? Did you know?
Okay, there we go. Did you know? We have to sorry. Did you know? That's too bad news. And in the news, it's more the Did you know? Buzz Aldrin and I almost have to buoy on Neil. You're thinking of grandpa. Yeah, he's a singer. Why don't I get some movies? Let's listen to the song. All 3 of the Beatles for the title. No, Neil Armstrong, which by the way is Neil A and then reverse it early. But anyway, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. I was thinking about that joke with Buzz Aldrin and Buzz Aldrin. One of the better jokes is that the way Buzz used to pick up women is he would go up and he'd say, I was sticking on the moon and Neil before me. Probably. Sadly. So when they were on the moon, you would think you would be correct with something like that line. that they should at some point have said the word Earth. They should at some point been on the moon, looked up, and just like we see the full moon, it's like, hey, look, the full moon. Imagine the moon being 4 times bigger, it being where we live. Think about like when you're flying a plane over your city, you're like, I can see my house. I can see my house right there. I can see my house. And you're still on Earth. So you're like, also there's my house. They're on the freaking moon, 240,000 miles away. The furthest anybody has been before that is about 250 miles. So we're just going to go Earth. Let's go. Well, no, we'll jump on my case. Yes, in Apollo 9 and 10, I think people supposedly went around the moon. So I'd be wrong to say that nobody had ever did that. But they were on the moon. They landed there. Crash landed. They get out. They do a bunch of things. They put some experiments out. They talk to the president via phone. 1969. And then they got back into the craft and launched their Earth. But they never once said the reason why, of course, is about the only answer I can come up with to make anything false. There's no other reason that you wouldn't be in awe. They should have been trying to get them corralled. Like, guys, we need you to do something. But we're looking at the Earth. Look at where we live. I can see Chicago. You know, whatever. I mean, it's just crazy to think that these guys would have just...
all right, I got 50 meters and 30 meters.
Hey,
Contact.
Story.
Contact, light.
Story, I think I broke something.
And 5%, and landed. And it's like, that's it. All right, we're on the moon. Okay, well, great. Like, you wouldn't be going crazy. And then the first thought you would have is, holy Christ, are we going to be able to lift off from here? Because the engines that they used were not able to ever be tested since they don't operate in a Earth environment. They have to operate on the moon.
Not to mention also when you land,
crazy. And then
how do you know that your suit is going to withstand whatever the conditions are on the moon when no one's ever been there? I would say, like, no, I'm not getting out. No, I'm not doing it. You do it. I'm not going to get out.
Circuit breaker.
Okay.
Circuit breaker.
Circuit breakers.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that this is a believable story of the moon landings. What's even funnier, and I've talked about this before, but I have to bring it up again. Think of the excitement and the front page news and every website talking about the fact that Elon Musk, the genius of all geniuses. I mean, you just need to stand back in awe of this man's intelligence.
Next level genius.
Oh boy, he is next level genius. He is. I mean, he's out of this world smart, beyond anybody I've ever even come across.
Thank goodness I'm not an intellectual. Being smart means being like him.
Yes. So he's so smart. He put a Tesla Roadster car in orbit of the Earth, and people lost their bowels. Basically, just could not see straight. Everyone cheering, people crying in the crowd because this car was put into orbit. Now, was there a human being in the car? No. There was a dummy.
It might have been a dead person, but that's theories.
Could be, yeah, I've heard that too. But anyway, I don't think any of that's real. Now, 50 years ago, we put men inside of a rocket.
We didn't. NASA did.
We being the United States, I guess.
Oh, NASA did.
NASA launched these 3 men into outer space, into orbit. They left orbit and flew to the moon. They entered the moon's orbit. They separated from a craft so that one person stayed in orbit of the moon. The other 2 people went down in a lunar module. The lunar module landed on the moon. These men got out of the moon, or got out of their little moon vehicle. They unfolded a car, a rover. They drove that thing miles around while filming it in 1969, 1970, 1971, 72 with their camera and its battery pack that I don't know where they got the battery pack from, but they drive this thing.
Transmitted it back to Earth.
Transmitted it back to Earth. They played golf. They did some science experiments. They stayed there for days sometimes, the later missions at least. Then they got back into this little craft. It took off and scattered colored fragments everywhere. It took off, connected back with the craft that was in orbit around the moon. Then those 2 things left the moon's orbit and came back to Earth, at which they entered Earth's orbit, and then they came into the Earth's atmosphere and landed in the Pacific Ocean, and then were picked up by a ship. That happened 50 years ago, and yet people are impressed today because genius Elon Musk, next level genius, put a red Tesla in orbit of the Earth. Never has he put a person in orbit. Never has he sent any craft anywhere else. And this is supposed to be impressive. And people are like falling over themselves. Like this genius. So do people have they just lost touch with reality and the fact that you cannot have, both things cannot exist. If Elon Musk is a genius, then the moon landings never happened. You cannot have both.
That's a good point.
You cannot have the moon landings happen and Elon Musk is a genius. You have to have the moon landings happen and we are 50 years behind where we were.
Yeah, exactly.
And Elon Musk is a tard.
Very good, babe.
So it just bothers me that that's even. I don't understand people. It's like people cannot think anymore. They think that that's so impressive that these two rockets come down and land back on Earth when it's like there's no people in those. And they didn't just fly 240,000 miles. The one that they did 50 years ago went 240,000 miles and landed on a foreign body with people inside of it and then took off again. But yet we're supposed to be excited because Elon Musk is landing rockets back on Earth with no people inside of them and they don't take off again except for months later. I mean, it's just crazy to anybody to think that we went to the moon. You have given up.
No, they just have not done the research.
No, tons of them have done the research. They just refuse to admit that they could have been lied to. That's the problem. It's just
Those
like
are some people, yes, the more hardcore people. But a regular everyday person just hasn't simply done the research. If you asked anybody on the street, did we go to the moon in the United States, they'd say sure. But then when you start bringing in all of the footage and everything, then if they are not hardcore, I
don't know. I think it's just a hill that they've created where people don't want to go over it. They don't want.
There's a very only select few, I think, because of who we see on YouTube, I think.
I don't know. I think it's everywhere. I think that if you ask somebody on the street,
I guess I think I'm more positive then.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. We'd have to do some street interviews and just see what. Remember what we did that one time when we were calling people randomly?
Yep.
We should do that again.
That was fun.
What Miss and I did is we looked on Craigslist because sometimes you'll see people's phone numbers because they're selling things. And I don't advocate this. I'm not saying to do it because it's rude.
We did it, so.
We did. But we just took phone numbers that we knew people were probably going to answer because they're selling something at the current time. And then we called them and I pretended like I was from a Department of Education. And said, hey, we just have a few questions. We are struggling with the fact that people are not recognizing the Earth as a sphere. And we want to find out why.
Well, we want to know if there's any better ways to teach children, show them that the Earth, the shape of the Earth or whatever, something like that.
Right. And then I gave them little like quizzes like how far is the moon? How far is the sun? How far is the closest star? And at the end I said, now the Earth is a sphere in your mind? And they would usually say yes. But then I would say something like, have you heard recently of this talk about the Earth being flat? And almost every time they said, yeah, I've heard something. Or I've heard, one guy said
it, yeah. The other guy said,
I forgot what they were. It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
But we should do it again because it was fun and it was enlightening to hear.
I think we do it better this time around.
Oh, and then one guy said, oh, yeah, I've been watching that on YouTube. And then I got scared because it was like, I didn't want to tell him who I was. He's going to recognize my voice.
Like, oh, by the way, I am Jeran.
Yeah, by the way, that's me. So anyway, it's very interesting stuff to look back at that time period because clearly it just does not work if you just use your head. Again, you can believe what men tell you. And that's what many people do. Yep. And it's a scary proposition. I don't believe in it. I think that is the demise of the civilization has been when we've given up our questioning minds. You're no longer allowed to question things that science says. That's why you'll get laughed at if you say something like evolution doesn't make sense. What do you mean? It's proven. It's scientifically proven.
It's proven because somebody told you it was proven, not because you yourself went and proved that evolution was true. That's just all I say about that.
This last week I had I don't know if you called it a debate, a conversation with Jesse Kozlowski and Steve McRae.
That was beautiful.
It was fun.
It was great.
And one of the things that was voiced there, this is actually a few days before when I was talking to Soundly, is, I was telling these guys, well, I understand that you think Jupiter's a planet and you think all these things. And I said, but, I just choose not to call those facts because the evidence, and they said, no. Jupiter being a huge planet is an observational fact because we have video of Shoemaker-Levy, the comet, hitting it in 1982 and the fragments then going in orbit of Jupiter. I'm like, what? Where is this video? Holy smokes. When you see this, the fact, maybe I should drop it in the chat just for people to see. When you see this video, it is horrendous. and this is the problem, is that you've got a group of people out there who they call their religion, and I call it a religion because what is religion, babe? What would you describe religion
is
as?
a set of principles or beliefs that are accepted as incontrovertibly true.
Okay, good. So a religion is basically your beliefs. You believe in something, right? Okay, and it doesn't matter if what you believe in you consider fact, because Christians believe in Jesus being their savior and believe he died on the cross and believe he rose from the dead and believe he was born of a virgin, and they believe those things are facts. Therefore, according to science, then we can't call that a religion, because they say, well, no, our beliefs are facts.
Are based on facts, yeah.
Well, it's like, well, great, say. But so do Christians think their beliefs are based on facts. So what is the difference? Just because you consider your facts factual,
yeah.
Well, so do Christians.
And just because science goes around saying there is no scientific authority, and just because science says everything is fact and proven by experiment, doesn't mean that those things are actually true.
No, it does not.
But if those things were true, then I could see people saying we're totally different from religion. You know, yeah, if you were doing experiments and basing things off of actual fact, then yes. Well, but they base things off of faulty theories.
So I dropped it in the chat, and if you go to YouTube, you can just search Shoemaker Levy collides with Jupiter. And in the particular video I'm looking at, if you go to about a minute.
So you want to be brave. So you found the light and you've seen the truth and you feel betrayed. Well, it comes with cost, a price too large. As if we're really just born to die. I'd rather let a been born.
Hi everyone, it's Chris Gio here, founder of Truth Frequency Radio. It is with the deepest sorrow that I have to inform everyone of the passing of our shaman, teacher, healer, and fellow TFR host, William Whitecrow. William has been our guide throughout this journey, and him and Sue became like the parents we never had. We both learned so much from him, and he was on countless radio shows with us over the last 10 years, even hosting his own program, Quantum Quest. Cherie and I also share a very sacred bond with William, as he performed a Native American wedding ceremony for us on December 21st, 2012, which binded us together. As William was the sole provider, we would like to help out the family by covering the funeral expenses. Please visit tfrlive.com/whitecrow, and you will be redirected to the GoFundMe page. Or you can click on the banner on our front page. Thank you so much for your love and support.
Cohen hearing, Trump and Comey. I'm Ann Cates. The government has been ordered to put items seized in a raid into a database and share it with the legal team of the president's personal lawyer. Correspondent Shimon Prokopesh.
The judge has sided somewhat with Michael Cohen's attorney here. She said, okay, I'm going to have the prosecutors hand you guys all of those documents, all of that material, and then we will reconvene, and we will essentially what's going to happen is they're going to decide after that what's privilege, what's not.
Cohen was ordered to reveal the name of one of his clients, who is Fox News host Sean Hannity. Porn star Stormy Daniels and her attorney were also at the hearing. President Trump continues to lash out at former FBI Director James Comey, while Washington lawmakers, including Pennsylvania Congressman Charlie Dent, are starting to weigh in.
The morning after the Comey interview on ABC, President Trump tweets, Comey drafted the crooked Hillary exoneration long before he talked to her, then based his decisions on her poll numbers. Dent thinks Comey should not have had the big news conference to say there was no reason to prosecute Clinton.
His original mistake, in my view, was publicly giving his opinion in July of 2016, and he compounded that mistake when he reopened the case.
And the letter to committee members on Capitol Hill about the reopening of the case was bound to be and was made public within minutes. Bob Costantini, Washington.
The Bill Cosby sexual assault retrial continues in suburban Philadelphia with his accuser on the witness stand. Correspondent Steve Kastenbaum.
Andrea Constand was grilled by defense attorney Tom Mesereau again. He quizzed her about discrepancies between phone records and her report to police. She said she told police what happened to the best of her recollection. He asked her why she spent so much time with a married man and never asked about his wife. Constand said it was a professional relationship, and Cosby's wife was none of her business.
On Wall Street, the Dow rose 213 points, the S&P 500 up 22, the Nasdaq gained 50. I'm Ann Cates.
Wherever you are,
weekday. Don't be surprised, don't be surprised. Walk like us. They even talk like us. Walk like us. But they are not like us. On the weekday, you can see the signs, you can see the signs. They wear the disguise. Look into the mind's eye. There's nowhere to hide. Don't stick all the lies. Whispers from afar.
not truth or not delivering truth.
I like it.
I would say I'm on the fence.
Monk from the USA series.
Why would you want to mess with people?
I'm sorry? Well, I don't want to mess with people. I just want to have backup accounts where, like, it's all going to be flat Earth. And, like, NBT, everyone knows Neil is not delivering truth.
Right.
At least we all know that.
True.
Another one was Globe got to leave brainwashing education.
Wait, got to leave. Oh, GLBE?
Yeah,
that one doesn't seem to work.
GLOBE. Globe. Oh, okay, yeah. I wrote this down when I was super drunk.
You're going to have to fix that one.
I was super drunk.
I've got a whole list of things that I've got to leave our brainwashing education. I've got another one down here.
There you go. That's better.
My advice would be
brainwashing education.
My advice would be any list that you make when you're drunk, you might want to just toss it.
Or double check it at least.
I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding.
Well, double checking is always a good idea.
Yes. All right, name a couple of them, then we got to go.
Well, that's pretty much that for that. But I just wanted to say, last week I called you and I called you out on the K word, and I
know I've been more careful now.
Stop saying the K word. Mm-hmm. It's so hard, like, because we've all been brought up with that word.
Say. It's easier to say than children, but it's not nice.
Oh, absolutely. And since I've stopped saying it, it's probably about a year that I've made a conscious effort.
Good.
To stop doing it. Like, as soon as you guys mentioned it, I was like, yeah, screw that. They're not baby Baphomets.
Mm-mm.
And
it's a great
I had some early training
challenge too. It's a great challenge for yourself. Like, for instance, I cannot say
so
the
hard
word.
To do.
Yeah, but then you get to a point sometimes where, like, the word, tard, if you will, that people say all the time, that's blank. It's like I can't even say the word anymore just because of, like, self-policing, and then you get to the point where you can't even say it. You just get to a point and you have to come up with another word for it, which is sometimes very difficult. That's why that word is used so often.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
kids,
totally
children.
agree.
Yeah.
One of the early things, way before I became Flat Earth, 10 years ago, I got a cat, and I named her G, like the letter G, because I liked Fresh Prince.
Oh.
And I thought, how awesome would it be to come home and be like, "What up, G?" Just like the Fresh Prince.
Yep.
So I might have named her Mason, right?
Right, might as well.
I guess.
Well, yeah, but I didn't know.
Yeah, no.
I was totally brainwashed and just dumb. My next cat was about 5 years later.
You know the day that we got married, right?
Not off the top of my head.
We got married 11/11/11, so we get shit for that all the time.
Oh.
But that was before we even knew anything about anything. And we still don't know anything about anything.
11/11 is a great song by DITRH has him on there. It's that song with the crazy number of F-bombs.
Yeah,
that was
we like
but
that
I love that song.
That was good.
Yeah, it's a great song. But we get stuff all the time that says these guys are married 11/11/11, it's 33, they're Masons, and it's just like, well, what can we do? We're gonna change our wedding date? No, sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry to talk about my cats, but my second
What's your
cat
second
I
cat?
got about 5 years ago. His name is Bollocks.
That's good.
So that's when I was just kind of waking
drunk?
up.
Were you drunk too when
I
you
hate
named
that word.
When you named your cat? I'm just kidding.
No. Bollocks was a conscious
decision.
Name. He's also ginger.
All right.
And then in the past year, I've gotten 2 more kittens, and they are Skiba and Platypus.
Oh wow. Well, those are at least a little better.
Hey, are you at a place in Canada that you can see the auroras?
Oh, not in Niagara Falls, no.
Okay, I didn't know if you were or not.
No, we're just basically at the border of the U.S. and Canada.
Oh, okay.
In Ontario, New York.
Well, I can't give you too
cannot
much
see the
of
auroras.
I can't give you too much of a hard time with you naming your animals those things, actually, because I don't really have a leg to stand on when it comes to naming your animals correctly. Because should we say what about Mr. Puppy?
Do you want to tell people that? That's
I don't think
scary thing
maybe.
to say.
Well, now I have to.
Now you have to. Way to go.
Okay,
we'll tell you after this call.
Yeah, we'll talk about it after the call.
It's pretty funny.
So I should not make fun
this
of you for
866 is 866 is toll free, right?
I
believe so.
I believe. I don't know. That's a good question. I should know that.
I really hope so. Anyway, a call or just a question off the rails.
Okay.
Jeran, I know you're a big wrestling fan.
Absolutely.
I'm 37. I'm sorry?
I said absolutely.
Okay. I'm 37. I haven't watched it in years. My top guy was always Mick Foley, Mankind, Dude Love, Cactus Jack. Who is your favorite all-time wrestler?
Ooh, babe.
That's a tough one, and I might go with the same pick.
$1 Million Man, you said one time.
As a kid, I liked the $1 Million Man a lot. Mr. Perfect was probably
Ted DiBiase.
Yeah, Ted DiBiase. Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig was a big one. But my favorite match of all time was late January 1999. I went to Anaheim, the Arrowhead Pond, and I saw Royal Rumble, and it was a I Quit match between The Rock and Mankind. Do you remember that match?
Oh, I know that match.
Yeah.
The chair shots with the audio over top of it.
Yep, the chair shots and with the lights going out in the arena. And seeing that in person, I also happened to be sitting one row behind Mick Foley's wife and his two kids. Sorry, I just said it again. His two children.
Oh, no.
And,
baby.
Geez, on the same call where I was. Too bad. And that was just a insane thing to see as how old was I? 19-year-old?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 19. Because his children were sitting there crying.
Yeah.
And halfway through the match, his wife and people were like yelling at her to get out of there, get your children out of here. So they finally left about halfway through the match. And then I'm actually in the movie Beyond the Mat. You ever seen that movie?
He's in the if you put it in slow motion.
I'm sure ages ago.
Yeah, it's a movie about that match, and it also talks about Jake the Snake and his personal problems and a couple other kind of highlights a few wrestlers. But they actually are doing a documentary at that event, and they show his wife and children and them crying, and right behind them you can see my buddy and I. But yeah, that was, because I went to, a lot of people don't know this, but I went to WrestleMania 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. It was a time in my life where I was racking up credit card debt, and it was just something that my buddies and I kind of decided when we kind of liked wrestling, and right around WrestleMania 16, we said, let's make it a thing that we're going to go to WrestleMania every year as a vacation. Mm-hmm. So it did. We went down to Anaheim for 16, Houston for 17, Toronto for 18, Seattle for 19, and New York for 20.
Wow.
And then I didn't go to another one until 2 years ago. My wife and I went to 32 because that was at the new 49er Stadium there in Santa Clara. So, I was a big wrestling fan. I don't watch it anymore. Maybe once a year or something if we tune in, but we do.
But what's impressive is I could ask you anything about like 2 years ago and back all the way to ECW back in the day or whatever, or WWE it was called, WWF it was called.
WWF originally.
You know everything there is to know about that. That's crazy. You can ask him any question about anything and he'll know the answer. David Weiss always calls and asks you.
Yeah, David Weiss makes me mad because he keeps getting interviews with these wrestlers. The other day he was on with Chris Jericho. Mm-hmm. Before that he was on with he keeps getting interviews with these because these guys are all interested in flat Earth.
Yeah.
And so
I don't know how they keep
getting like, why did I get to get an interview? I've never had an interview with these guys.
Yeah.
And he was on with Steven Richards. Remember Stevie Richards from like Right to Censor?
That might be after I gave her up.
Is it a more recent
vaguely
thing?
sounds familiar.
Oh. I'm really sad they got rid of the curb stomp. That was my favorite.
That was the best finishing move that there was.
That was my favorite. I know it was very
probably smart for them to
but
get
I mean, come on, it was awesome.
Yeah, those were good times. But
I think Rikishi might have something to say about that. Rikishi's finisher was
Stinkface.
The Stinkface. Yeah.
Now, isn't he dead?
I don't think so.
He died.
I don't know.
Pretty sure he died.
Yeah.
Really? That's sad.
If I'm not mistaken. A lot of those guys die very young. I think it could be due to the bodily harm or the steroids, Yeah. But, really, my favorite wrestler of all time has to be Stone Cold. I mean, I don't think that you can really... Rebel. Yeah, just because, that was the era that I grew up in, the whole Attitude Era. That would probably be my favorite. Mick Foley was the underdog. I remember he won his title January 4th, 1999. That was on my birthday. It was probably the most unexpected victory of all time. It was certainly not something anybody expected. I used that footage in one of my recent videos where I was doing the mocking of Elon Musk playing that stupid song when his car was revealed.
Yeah.
And then I just saw that. I said, that sounds like something that would happen during a wrestling. And I just tried to put it behind that point where the crowd goes crazy because here comes Stone Cold and knocks The Rock with the chair and drags Mankind on top of him for the victory. But I put that in my video. I was like, yes, I love to include wrestling in my videos because it's pretty funny. I've done another one before where people are saying yes, 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 and then they give a karate kick to Lawrence Krauss or something. It's pretty funny. Anyway, I could do a whole show on wrestling.
The chair shot to Buzz. That you did when people would subscribe. That was fantastic. Mark Henry.
Yeah, Mark Henry. Yeah.
I freaking laughed every time somebody subscribed.
And then I changed it to Brock Lesnar coming in and doing the front chair shot. Yeah, wrestling's hilarious. I mean, people, if they, I know a lot of people
have a bad taste about it. They don't get it. They don't get it.
Well, I think it's because McMahon is clearly part of the elite, and
You think so?
Well, he makes a lot of money.
He goes against them a lot.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
They fight against him. They call him names. They call him all this terrible for children.
Yeah, it's just tough because and his wife was in the Senate. So I mean, there's just a lot. There's too much to say that he's completely innocent of all that. And I don't think it's the same thing with Trump. You cannot.
For Ted Turner.
Yeah, if you cannot be in that position and not be corrupted a little bit. So it's just impossible. There's just nobody who's that rich that hasn't had to succumb to because that's the only way you get on top. You have to step on people. He had to step on people his whole life to make WWF the number one. It is a monopoly. There is really nowhere else to go.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He doesn't really have to be a sellout.
Well, it is now.
Yeah, and to do that, you have to step on people. I mean, it's just part of the.
Oh, he did step on Ted Turner, like you said, right?
Yep, bought that right out from under him. But yeah, those were great times. If anybody has never been into wrestling, there's some great DVDs called the Monday Night Wars, which were a great period of time where you actually had a real two channels going back and forth against each other, two wrestling outfits.
Oh yeah.
And then one of them ended up buying out the other one, and now there is no battle anymore because there's only one to go to, only one to see. So that's crazy. I love talking to old wrestling fans because
you should really have a podcast of just talking about wrestling. I would enjoy that myself.
I could definitely have enough content.
Because that would be forever and ever. You wouldn't have to worry about what to talk about.
Yeah, there's so many storylines and crazy stuff that's happened in the years. I was watching live when Owen Hart died. I remember that was
I saw
that live too.
Yeah, I think it was 2000 or 2001.
Wow.
The whole thing with Chris Benoit. I mean, I went to WrestleMania 20 where Chris Benoit won the title.
Wow.
Now I think that there's some interesting stuff with that. I don't know if that's an entirely true story.
I don't know. Yeah.
If anybody doesn't know, Chris Benoit was a big namer in the WWF or WWE at the time. He wasn't the title holder at the time, but it was around the time where he had just either lost it or something.
Or he was gonna get it.
Yeah, I think he was supposed to win it at the event or something. And he didn't show up for one of the telecasts, and then they tried calling him, and then he didn't answer, and they ended up going out to his house, and he had murdered his wife, son, and self.
And then just killed himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty crazy
supposedly,
story. Supposedly, that's the story that we're told.
I can't believe that though. It's crazy.
But yeah, there's so many crazy stories in the whole wrestling thing, and the Owen Hart thing I was talking about. Owen Hart was supposed to come to the ring during a pay-per-view. I said pay-per-view again. I always say pay-per-view. And he started to lower to the ring on a cable, what do you call those? A rappelling cable or something?
Suspension.
Yeah, he was coming basically from the roof of the building, and the thing snapped, and he fell to his death. And one of the things that got the WWE in the biggest trouble was they continued the show. Yeah. Which I was watching live when it happened, and what happened was you could see him start to come down this little rope, and then the camera just kind of swung to the right and just showed the crowd. Yeah. So you're just looking at the crowd like, what's going on? And then they said, oh, we have an accident. Now, they always have things happen. I mean, Mr. McMahon is blown up in a limo many times. They always have accidents where people are supposed to have gotten hurt. But this one was they're not showing it, and they're like, we just had a major accident here, and Owen Hart is not. And then within 5 minutes, they reported that he was dead. Wow. And it was like, what? And then they say,
you could see it in Jeff Jarrett's face.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Jeff Jarrett came on. He was just heartbroken.
And can you imagine? Then they just say the show must go on, and they went to the next match. And it's like, can you imagine being that your coworker? He just died, and you got to go out and now you got to wrestle in your match.
That's show business.
Pretty insane. So yeah, that's memories.
I shed tears that next Monday, man.
Oh, whenever they have somebody pass away,
shed tears that next Monday.
Yeah, that's sad because you get to know those people. I mean, when the crazy thing about wrestling that people don't know is that it's the longest running episodic live show in all of TV.
Except for MASH?
No, that was not live.
Oh, that was not live. Oh, very good.
Right. So Raw has gone every Monday night live for something like 24 years.
Wow.
I think 24 years, 25 years. Every Monday night
They were
of the new
competing
show.
with them all the time.
Yeah, we're right up against them.
Monday
That's
Night
true.
Raw.
That's why we get no audience now. That's why. So no, we appreciate the call. Any
the
final
title
word?
of your show.
Yeah, it is.
That is the title of the show. That is the reason. People...
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I figured that out pretty quickly. The final words is WCW NWO. They just wanted to make it in the back of her head.
New World Order.
Or when the New World Order actually does come out, the NWO.
And if you think about
for life.
Think about the Wolfpack signal. What is that telling people to do?
What is it telling people?
Oh, that's the devil horns, absolutely.
The devil horns and the Wolfpack. That was pushed real hard. That was more WCW than WWF, but then they bought them, so then they brought all that over. So that's what we're saying. Is there is some stuff in there that should not be in there. They've done some.
I screw up the wolf horns constantly during my teenage years.
Did you used to throw those up?
I was so hook, line, and sinker constantly because.
I never was into
why
that.
Why not? It's if you're not aware, then how can you know?
Yeah, if you're not aware, then you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
It's just like people who give the OK signal. I would never give the OK signal because the OK signal is a 666.
Yeah.
Which is.
And here comes another.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, just another story off the rails. I had a mascot job where I was just a mascot walking around Niagara Falls, working for a chocolate factory because I don't want to implicate anyone.
Okay.
But if you can't talk, you've only got 4 fingers. What do? It's either the thumbs up, you give the basically your best of a 666 OK symbol. And I put so many OKs out there in people's photographs before I was aware that I'm really ashamed. Because, again, I just didn't know. But,
hey, well, now you know.
Better believe I won't be doing that again.
Yeah, now you know.
Yeah, that's half.
Well, we appreciate the call a lot. And it's funny because when I went to the conference, the one thing I said is if I don't have my hands under control, I'm going to accidentally do something. So if you watch the conference, I'm holding the podium the whole time.
Yeah, you did. You didn't even move your hands at all.
Nope, because I just said I'm not going to have somebody come along and say, "Oh, you did this, flashing this." I'm like, "Oh, give me a break." And I understand that stuff, but it's kind of like I talked about before that I think that they're using a lot of this stuff just because the power is in the fact that you think it means something.
Right.
Like the whole idea of numbers. Like I really don't think putting a number into anything will ever change reality. But I think when you put 33 people died in this accident, well, by them saying that, then we all think that...
People like Zachary Hubbard jump on it like crazy.
Right, the 33, it's coded, but we're almost giving them more power by saying that they can do something and like that, right? Like, I mean, really, they can. If they're making up an event, then they can say how many people they want.
There's just there's so many other better evident ways to figure out if something's a hoax or fake,
right?
Other than the numbers.
Numbers.
It just looking at the interviews of the people or the stories don't match up, not the numbers.
Yeah, it's like I hear people too often say some things that bother me. One of the things is we know it's a hoax if it's in the mainstream news. That is not a good measure because if something does happen, it's going to be in the mainstream news. I mean, it's not like a missile will come and drop on a city and take out everybody in the city and it won't make the mainstream news. That the news still has the job of the news to do. Now it also has a corporate agenda, but it's still going to report the news. If there's news to report, they're going to report it. Now
they don't know whether or not the news they're getting is true or not. They just
absolutely
report.
But what I'm saying is you can't, for instance, I was talking offline the other day with John LeBon, just because he has some of the same, I guess you could call them risque beliefs that I do.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about like how long humanity's been here, things like that, I think I've got a very different opinion than a vast majority of people.
Yeah.
But in talking to him back and forth, and I saw some things that he was calling a hoax, I said, one of the things you're calling a hoax is the MH370. I said, I'm not sure that that's a hoax. And he said, oh, it's definitely a hoax. It was on mainstream news. And I said, that's not a good measurement. I said, if a plane full of 250 people gets lost, that's going to make the mainstream news. You can't just say it's a hoax because it made the mainstream news. And in fact, then I said, you need to look at what would be the reason to hoax that. I said, what came out since MH370? We found out that planes are not tracked by satellites, as people thought. Number two, we found out we can lose a frickin' plane.
Yeah.
Those things are not good for the powers that be.
Yeah.
They do not want that known. Now, here's my opinion is simply in the southern oceans, there are many sections of ocean that are not charted because not even charted. They're not on GPS because you have to shrink. If you have a flat plane and you need to get it onto a ball, you're going to have crinkles when you've wrapped that piece of paper.
Yeah.
And so you need to chop those pieces of water out of GPS. And if a plane loses connectivity or it's not connected to a satellite and it goes into that ocean,
one of the gaps,
then there's nobody who can ever search that part of the ocean because it doesn't exist in GPS. Now, I also looked into that and found there's reports of people that were out there looking for that boat, and these ships went missing for 3 days.
Holy what?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then they showed back up on radar, and people are like, where were you for 3 days? They're like, we're in the ocean? What do you mean? Well, they weren't showed up. So, I mean, there's so much evidence that tells me that that's exactly where it is. MH370.
Tell me about the waters of your homeland, Modi.
It is well known that the key to escaping the matrix is purifying your consciousness. But our consciousness is bombarded daily with chemicals in the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the water we drink. This is why we are proud to bring you TFRwater.com, where you can get the Alexa Pure water filtration system. Unlike typical water filters, the Alexa Pure comes standard in stainless steel to keep your water free of BPA and dangerous chemicals found in plastic. This revolutionary water filtration system removes 99.999% of all contaminants, including fluoride, a dangerous neurotoxin added to drinking water, which was first used in Russian gulags to keep prisoners docile. This is standard without the need for expensive add-ons. The Alexa Pure retails for $199, but you can get $50 off by going to TFRwater.com now. Supplies are limited. 4 per person.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Jim Ram, retired. In early 2012, I was facing a laundry list of chronic health conditions that my physician was telling me were incurable. I knew there had to be a better way, and I learned how I could reverse every one of my ailments with science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. In just a few months, I was able to reverse high blood pressure, gastric reflux, sleep apnea, arthritis, degenerative disc disease, heart arrhythmia, AFib, and many more. And I've lost over 70 pounds and kept it off. Now I'm hosting a radio program that's dedicated to helping my listeners do the same. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you're sick of being used as an ATM by your doctor, then you'll want to tune into the Your DIY Health radio program here on Truth Frequency Radio every Thursday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern and 6 to 8 a.m. Pacific.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
You're listening to Truth Frequency Radio.
We are TFR.
comes from outside the Earth is coming through as data, as bits, and it is not in the visible spectrum, and it is coming through, being processed by a computer, and minutes later being output as what we see. If you want to trust that, that's on you. I'm not going to trust it. There's no reason to trust something like that unless everything else pans out. And when you see NASA gets $52 million a day, and they have provided absolutely zero for mankind, then you should start to see that we're all a part of a gigantic hoax. It is a gigantic theft of your money, theft of your mind and your children's minds, and I'm going to do everything I can to let that be known to the world, that you don't do the things that NASA does. It's all pretend. It's all about this story we read earlier about the ball Earth, the idea of the ball Earth. You would never create a craft in space that requires people to put on suits, to get covered up in huge expensive gear, then to go outside and risk their lives to connect some cables. You would construct a craft with access panels that you could get to from the inside of the craft. We do not attach all kinds of wires and cables on the outside of airplanes and then send the pilot out on the wing during the flight. We don't put all kinds of cables and apparatus on the outside of a submarine and tell people to go outside during the submarine's travels and fix these wires. The idea of spacewalks is a movie for you. It is meant for you to say, wow, look how impressive these guys. They're out in space. They're walking in space. There's no need for it. It's a complete and total fabrication. We've seen so much evidence of this, from finding out that there's a simple O-ring protecting the inside of the craft from the outside and a mechanical hand-cranking device that opens and closes windows. Okay, there's so much problems with the idea of spacewalks and all of it that need to be called into question. Again, we've just accepted some words of men, and the way I look at it, they thought boats went over the edge. They thought water went down the opposite hemisphere in the opposite direction. So, of course, they constructed a planet out of a North and South Pole. If at any point they would have realized that they were wrong, would they have admitted it? I don't think so. I think they would cover it up with everything possible. You teach one thing as the truth. You teach the other thing as the most ridiculous untruth of all time. And then you've got your recipe. You've got people believing something it's so insane that to believe, let's just put this simply, to believe you live on a rock, it's a space rock, with water attached to the outside. That rock is spinning at different speeds for different points of the Earth, meaning that the air that is connected to the Earth, velcroed to it basically, is spinning coincidentally with the spinning Earth. However, at every layer, it must be spinning at a different speed. Therefore, there is a place on Earth where you are going 660 miles per hour in a spiral, and a place on Earth where you're going 1 mile per hour above that. At the in-between area there, you are breaking the speed of sound. Never will you call someone and they not be able to hear you because you're going faster than the speed of sound. This whole thing is spinning, and they tell us we don't feel it because the atmosphere of the Earth is moving with the ground. Okay, let's give them that. Now, all of a sudden, if you ask where winds come from the spinning Earth. The fact that the Earth is spinning is causing the weather patterns, hence the Coriolis force, which is a result of the planet spinning towards the east and winds rushing in the north and cutting to the right and in the south and cutting to the left. However, that means that the atmosphere that is attached to the Earth is also being affected. How would we not feel that? How would you not know the speed? How do you not know if you're coming or going? If you think about that, if you're standing face north for 5 minutes, just face north, and then quickly turn around and face south, if what they say is true, you will fall down. There's no way your body could recover from spinning at that speed one direction and just turn around and now you're going the other direction. However, we do that and nothing happens at all. In fact, the 100 billion people that live on this earth, or have lived on this earth, not one of them has ever felt any movement. In fact, tests done by Michelson Morley, Einstein, all these people, all have said the exact same thing, that there is no experiment to prove the moving earth. However, you are taught it's a fact. You're taught about relativity, which means that everything motion is relative. However, they teach you in school that the Earth goes around the sun. Well, that's not, I thought it was relative, meaning you could say the Earth goes around the sun or you could say the sun goes around the Earth. But they teach you relativity is true because they need it to explain their other nonsense. Then they also say the Earth goes around the sun. Both things cannot be true. Let's continue. This Velcroed planet is spinning in the endless vacuum of space where there is nothing to hold the huge space rock that you've seen 1,000 times suspended in air. Now, if you watch Bill Nye or somebody like that, they're going to put a ball on the end of a string. They're going to swing it around. And that ball looks like it's in some sort of orbit. And the string is supposed to be gravity. Okay, great example. Except for the fact that if you get up above the Earth right now and look at the Earth, we're just sitting still. There's nothing. Where is the spinning motion? Where is us flying? How are we held in orbit if we're just sitting here? I mean, the spin of the Earth, even though it's 1,000 miles per hour, is a tiny little rotation speed. We're just barely moving in a circle. It's all mathematical jumbo nonsense. On top of that, we are flying around the sun 66,000 miles per hour. Okay? Even though you'd be coming and going, again, you're moving towards the sun, away from the sun, towards the sun. You'd have to change your orbit speed, which they say is true. Add to that as we go around the sun, when we are closest to the sun, for us in the north, is in January. Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Meaning when your temperatures are the coldest, we are closest to the sun. And when it's July, when it's blazing heat and the sun's right above my head, hot as could be, that's when we're furthest from the sun. These things are all requirements of a mathematical, nonsensical model. Together with the sun and all the other planets, we are traveling at a speed of 480,000 miles per hour around the Milky Way galaxy. 480,000 miles per hour, nobody's ever felt a thing. Combined with the Milky Way galaxy and the solar system, we are all traveling around the quote-unquote great attractor, which, by the way, has never been observed, traveling around it at a speed of 2.2 million miles per hour. Again, no one has felt a thing. On top of that, you can add to it that 95% of the known universe has never been observed. It consists of dark matter and dark energy because none of the speeds of the galaxies and everything else that they've come up with matches what they see, what they observe. And all you got to do is look to the movie The Principle, where Michio Kaku explains it simply, that there is a huge problem in cosmology, that when they look at their observations versus theory, they're off by a factor of 1 to the 120. I'm sorry, 10 to the 120. That's a 10 followed by 120 zeros.
Ridiculous.
And he says it is the largest mismatch in the history of science. Now, you'll have people go around telling you these things are facts, that everything that they tell you about science is a fact, that the planet sizes are facts.
And that they're based on observational things.
Again, I didn't even mention the fact that the sun that we're going around, by the way, is 1,300,000 times bigger than the Earth.
Of course it is.
Go out and look at the sun tomorrow, and please tell me that you are willing to give up your faculties, throw away your senses, and believe that the sun, in fact, they say the sun is 99.9% of the mass of the solar system is the sun.
What?
Go look at the sun, and it's in your sky. It's right. This is tiny.
It's right there.
It's right there. It's very close. One of the experiments we want to do coming up is to wait till the sun is about over the middle of the United States, so say somewhere in Colorado, and we want to send 4 balloons, one from, say, SoCal, one from up near Seattle, one near New York, one near Florida, and get up in all 4 of those areas around the sun. What we will see is the same thing you see in every balloon footage, which is the balloon looks out and the sun is off in the distance, kind of looks like it's maybe twice as high as the balloon, maybe even height with the balloon.
Okay.
Well, when you get that from all 4 cameras, being 4 places on the corner of the United States, and they all see the sun in the middle across the, well, then it cannot be 93 million miles. Impossible.
Yep.
The sun is not 93 million miles, and anybody who believes that doesn't really believe it. They just simply were told it, and they don't want to really consider everything that entails.
I would say that they only believe it, they don't know it.
If you believe in the space age story that they've told us, get this. Many of the stars are certain amounts of light years away, right? Okay. So imagine this. If we go to a star that has planets in orbit of it, and it is 67 million light years away, If somebody had a telescope on that planet and looked back at the Earth and was able to zoom in all the way to the Earth, they would see the dinosaurs. Now, if you believe in this, if you think that's how the world works, if you think there's a speed of light, if you think that all these things have been figured out and they're concrete and they're exact, and Newton drew a picture of a cannonball, and if you throw the cannon too short, it hits the Earth, and if you throw it too far, it goes out in space. But if you do it just right, that cannon will go around the Earth and come back and hit you in the back of the head.
And then get lost in space, like the Tesla.
Yeah, you could go too far. He threw it too far.
Oh, you threw it too far.
Yeah,
Okay,
you know, it's in a whatever. I mean, these things are just they're not as cut and dry as people want to say.
They're
And when you
ideas.
go asking for evidence and for actual proof, you will find what I found, none. Then you'll find quotes by scientists that tell you exactly what's going on here. You'll find George Ellis's quote. You'll find, Edwin Hubble's quote. And these people clearly have a worldview. That worldview includes nothing better than humans. It includes no reason for a creator, a life-giving spirit, no reason for anything else other than the laws of physics to create the world that we have.
Which they go against most laws of physics when it comes to cosmology, which is hilarious.
Take a puzzle, go buy a 500-piece puzzle, and I want you to keep putting the pieces in a bag and then throw the bag up in the air and tell me when the puzzle completes on the ground.
Probably in about 4.5 billion years.
It would take at least that long, I guess, according to the the answer is never. Just like the answer would be, there's actually people who believe that if you had a infinite amount of monkeys and an infinite amount of typewriters, that those monkeys typing would eventually type a William Shakespeare play.
It's funny because infinite amount is a oxymoron, because amount means
infinite's the
a
stupidest
number
thing
of
ever.
things. Infinite is not even it's not a number. That's why they say
Because I can say +1.
right. Or like when someone says there's a myriad of ways you can paint a picture, that doesn't mean that there's an actual myriad amount of ways. It means that you can't count how many types of ways there are to paint a picture. You know what I mean? So it's myriad and infinite are of the same uncountable nature. I would have to say.
Like the word virtual.
Yes, very good. Virtually.
Yeah, virtually scot-free. You can have virtually no stains on your pants if you use Tide.
A new word we should add to that list is perspectively.
Who says that?
Me.
We should add that to the list?
Yeah.
All right, add prospectively. It's added.
Well, prospectively, you can say that you live on a ball, but in reality, you can't do that.
Speaking of that, find a globe.
Okay.
And take a look at it right now. Let's all look at the globe.
Okay, it's over there. I mean, we don't have one.
What is it made up of? What's inside that? We do have a globe.
Yeah, I know. I was joking.
What's inside of it? I picture like a chocolate
That one is a
malt
hollow globe.
No, the real one that's in the sky according to science.
Or the one that's in the sky.
The one that's in the space.
The one that we're not on, or the one that we are?
The one that we're on according to science.
Okay, inside there's the mantle, and then there's the
What
crust.
does that mean? What is it?
Layers of the earth.
Like layers of dirt?
Like an onion.
Yeah, but what is it made of? Is it the dirt?
Sure, and then water and shit too.
There's water in there?
Oh yeah, there's water in there.
Concrete?
No, probably not.
Marble?
Maybe.
Granite?
A petrified tree. Yeah.
Limestone?
Yeah.
Okay. But they waited until it was this big until trees grew, or did it grow? What happened with the Earth when it was half as big?
When it was was it ever half as big?
I don't think it could just be as big.
As it is? I thought it was that big when it's.
Doesn't it need to grow from the size of a rock?
I don't know. What did they say that happened?
I think it was a collection of dust and debris
Molded together into a ball.
Because it was very molten at one time.
Oh.
It was basically like a lava ball.
Okay, and then it turned into what it is now.
I have no idea. It's laughable.
So laughable.
It is not real.
I'm sorry, but my sister is not upside down right now. Okay, that's not how.
Oh no,
works.
she's upside down. No, I'm just kidding. No, there's nobody's
it's
upside down from
terrible.
you. And again, all you need to look at is their own words and their.
And that's how you can have power over them is by looking at a globe and laughing.
It is funny.
If you laugh at them, then you have now taken the power away from them.
And you can call it an observational fact all you want. To believe that you live there is a belief.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It is your religion. My religion says I don't live there. So I have different facts than you. Okay, that's the way it goes.
Well, your religion is based off of your own discoveries. Everyone else's, in terms of the globe, in terms of the Bible, it's off of someone else's discoveries, quote unquote.
Right.
It's not their own discoveries.
Nope. And yeah, mine are, if you have beliefs, I would hope that you'd be able to explain them. And if your explanation says, well, they say, or that guy said, or scientific consensus says,
or this book says.
Yeah, it's just dangerous. It's a dangerous place to go.
It is.
We have to recognize that the mainstream media is compromised. And if you go back in time, say 100 years ago, then you have to realize how easy it would have been to manipulate any information.
Oh, yeah.
Then go 100 years before that and realize how incredibly easy it would have been to manipulate any information. And then go 100 years before that, and we're only at 1700, and realize they could have told people anything at all. All it needed to be was just a word of mouth thing, because if you go 100 years before that, there was no such thing as books.
Yeah.
And there was no such thing as the printing press. And therefore, only 1% of the world even knew how to read. So you could very easily construct books about anything that you wanted, saying anything was true, and people would have believed it. And if you burned books and you told people they only had to believe in this Bible, then we'd be living in a world where a majority of people, for some reason, believes that the Bible is the Word of God.
Weird.
And
kind
yet,
of is what's happening. Sorry. That was your punchline, I'm sure.
Yes, and we can keep going back before that, 100 years before that, and 100 years before that. And before you know it, you'll get to a place where you cannot possibly bank on any of it. And again, I'll read a section of a book, if I can find it real quick.
Oh, that's so great. I love this book so far.
Oh, well, that's another book I was going to read, but we'll get to that one too.
Okay.
That book is called A Plea for Flat Earth and the Moon Smiles.
Oh.
And that book is written by, I want to say Lenny Dijkstra, something like that.
Okay. Dijkstra?
Yeah, 1960. Well, it's a D-I-J, Dijkstra.
Oh, yeah.
K-S-T-R-A or something.
You got.
Very tough word to say. It was a Dutch book written in 1966, and I have it up on my site, books.jeranism.com. There's only 4 books up there now because I can't get the CSV uploader to work, and I don't want to enter them all by hand. But eventually there will be all of our free ebooks up there, all for you, the fine folks, the fine listeners, for free. And we've got quite an eclectic collection.
I have like 150 on my one site, and that's only a little smidgen of.
That's just a small little sampling, and yeah, a lot of articles I picked up along the way, or scientific papers, all that stuff. So the book that I want to read or a little portion of, there's somebody named Eratus, and it is funny. Missa brought this up a long time ago. I think it's hilarious too, that every single person that lived prior to like 500, why do they all have the last name? You know what I never noticed? Jesus. Jesus has the U.S.
Oh, that's great. And
I never thought about it.
And my theory is that every person who has a name like that is made up.
That's crazy. I never thought about Jesus has the U.S., just like all of them. Justice. Eratosthenes is not one.
No, but Aristarchus.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I thought there was a lot more than that. But
there is, yeah.
Like Lusitanius Majoris or whatever. Like that's how you make up names. Is like Jeranus Campanellus.
Like everybody is at the U.S. at their end of the name. And we're looking at a person now, Eratus, who wrote the book called Phenomena, or something like that, Phenomena, which means the phenomenon.
Thank you.
He wrote it. He was Eratus of Soli, was a Greek poet who flourished in Macedonia in the early 3rd century BC. His only surviving work is The Phenomenon, a book describing the constellations and weather signs. Let's see here.
So when was this written again? What'd you say?
So he lived from, and I'm going to go to the Wikipedia so I don't say it incorrectly, but I believe that he lived in 300 and 200 BC.
As per
people's beliefs, I guess.
I don't know if
Eratus. It says, and I want to tell you where it says we know that by.
Okay.
It says Eratus was a Greek didactic poet. His major extant work is his hexameter poem called Phenomenon.
Hexameter?
Hexameter. The first half of which is a verse setting of lost work by the same name of Eodoxus, which is another U.S., of Critias, another U.S. It describes the constellations and other celestial phenomenon. The second half is called Diosomia, which comes from forecasts and is chiefly about weather lore. Although Eratus was somewhat ignorant of Greek astronomy, his poem was very popular in the Greek and Roman world and is proved by the large number of commentaries and Latin translations, some of which survive. So what they're calling proof now is if you supposedly wrote a book in 300 BC, And then that book is missing. But somebody in 300 AD wrote that you wrote a book in 200 BC.
Oh.
That is now proven that you've written a book in 200 BC.
Jeez Louise, come on, people.
And if that book doesn't survive, the one from 300 AD, and somebody in 1600 AD wrote that somebody in 400 AD wrote that somebody in 300 BC wrote a book, that is proof, according to our world. By the way, there is no way to date books. You cannot date a book.
Nope.
The way you date a book is you look at the writing style, you look at the paper, and then you say this is the date that it was written.
Right.
And so if
And even then, it can only be approximate.
yeah, it's just a fabrication. It's
Yeah.
complete and total fabrication. The oldest book, according to Antonio Fomenko, who has written several books on the new chronology.
I like him.
Me too, like him a lot. And the oldest book that he can reliably say he can date to be factual is 1200.
Wow.
That's
I believe it.
the oldest book, and I don't even think that's reliable, personally.
Probably not.
By the way, if you, again, believe in this whole idea of the year zero, I would change my beliefs. Me personally, I think the year zero was the year zero. It's about how old humanity is, about 2,000 years old.
Jesus is one.
Yeah,
Jesus
because
is
you would
two.
never go back in time. You would imagine that we right now decided George Washington was so important that we're going to change time.
Okay.
And we're going to make that the zero, 1750 when he was born.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the nightmare it would be? First of all, everything before that, the date needs to change now from a date that it is to a negative something BC.
Yeah, true.
Or a one. So it would have been such a nightmare, and you would have tons of writing about this change in 1500 that they had to go back and change everything. But it just so happens that the date was changed right before books started to be printed.
Ooh.
So how much of an easier way do you have to completely construct a historical narrative than to find out you can print books and say, change the dates. This is what we're going to put back. We're going to say these dates happened. And all we need to do is write a book and say it's from 400 AD and write about a book that says it's from 200 BC, and people will believe it. And they're absolutely right. And this is all tricks by men. It's all fabricated reality.
Hi everyone, it's Chris Gio here, founder of Truth Frequency Radio. It is with the deepest sorrow that I have to inform everyone of the passing of our shaman, teacher, healer, and fellow TFR host, William Whitecrow. William has been our guide throughout this journey, and him and Sue became like the parents we never had. We both learned so much from him, and he was on countless radio shows with us over the last 10 years, even hosting his own program, Quantum Quest. Cherie and I also share a very sacred bond with William, as he performed the Native American wedding ceremony for us on December 21st, 2012, which binded us together. As William was the sole provider, we would like to help out the family by covering the funeral expenses. Please visit tfrlive.com/whitecrow, and you will be redirected to the GoFundMe page. Or you can click on the banner on our front page. Thank you so much for your love and support.
The Cohen hearing, Oklahoma wildfires. I'm Ann Cates. A federal judge has ordered the government to create a database of materials seized in an FBI raid to share with the legal team of the president's personal attorney, Michael Cohen. Correspondent Steve Kastenbaum reports on other action in the courtroom.
During the hearing, it was revealed that a third mystery client referred to in court papers was Fox News host Sean Hannity. Outside the courthouse, Stormy Daniels' attorney, Michael Avenatti, said Hannity had been thrown under the bus.
He was clearly more concerned about protecting the president than protecting Sean Hannity.
Hannity said that Michael Cohen never represented him in any legal matter, that he never paid Cohen for any services, but he did seek his perspective on some legal questions. Steve Kastenbaum outside federal court in Manhattan.
Two deadly wildfires have charred thousands of acres in Oklahoma.
The National Weather Service says the fire danger in western Oklahoma and western North Texas will be extreme, based on a combination of low humidity and strong winds that are expected to be the worst seen in a decade. This while the U.S. Forest Service is fighting a blaze that has already torched 245,000 acres, more than 100 miles northwest of Oklahoma City. 20 miles from there, another fire has burned over 65,000 acres. I'm Clayton Neville.
Starbucks says a manager of a Philadelphia store is no longer at that location as demonstrations continue over the arrest of 2 black men.
Protesters entered the store calling for her termination.
What do we want? Liberation! When do we want that? Now!
But the Starbucks CEO said the blame is on him.
These 2 gentlemen did not deserve what happened, and we are accountable. I am accountable.
After transporting the men to a local precinct, the officers were told Starbucks was no longer interested in prosecuting. I'm Natasha Chen reporting.
On Wall Street, the Dow rose 213 points. The Nasdaq gained 50. I'm Ann Cates.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. We are TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
talks about the 5 planets, and he says, but of quite a different class are those 5 other orbs that intermingle with them and wheel wandering on every side of the 12 figures of the zodiac, no longer with the others as they guide. Couldst thou mark where the path of those goes, since all pursue a shifty course, and long are the periods of their revolution, and far distant is the goal of their conjunction. When I come to them, my daring fails, but mine be the power to tell of the orbits of the fixed stars and the signs of heaven.
Jeez.
So he's basically saying, I don't know what's going on with the planets. Why? Because then it's amazing when here comes Galileo and here comes Copernicus, and now they can explain what these 5 mysterious orbs are doing, and they figure out exactly their mathematic patterns and why there's. It's just nonsense.
It is such a Jew story.
It's such a bad story. It really is.
I'm sorry, it was the bad Jews, okay? The Zionist ones, that's what I mean.
It's crazy. It's just the fact that this would be believed by anybody. Anybody should read this and recognize what it is. And they have to make the people sound crazy. They have to make them sound like they're talking about crazy, fanciful things, but then also they're getting these stars and their order exactly right.
They have to have both of it.
Right.
They have to have the ancient desert wanderers.
Correct. They have to be ancient desert wanderers, but they knew enough about the stars, and then here comes the Dark Ages where everybody forgot everything, and thank goodness science came along and saved us from the church.
Yeah, I would have to say nobody back in the day would look at the stars and think that they're still.
No, they didn't. They thought here that he's talking about the stars moving.
He said fixed stars.
Right, they're all fixed, moving. That's what they're.
Oh, I didn't hear him say moving.
Yeah, well, that's what they want you to believe. But again, then you look at things like Aristophanes and the whole idea of the shadows. And I mean, think of this: if you knew that there was 2 poles of the Earth, okay, and you knew that your angle to the North Star, then you would easily know the circumference of the Earth.
Sure.
You would easily figure that out. You could figure that out by just saying, well, if I'm at 37 degrees and the North Pole star is at 90 degrees, then you would figure out there's 2 poles. All right, there we go. I figured out exactly. So the whole idea of the sticks and everything, it's just all pretend.
It's all pretend.
All pretend. So we will get into a different book, and this is the one, again, go to books.jeranism.com and pull up a book by the name of, there's only 4 there now, but the one of them is called A Plea for the Flat Earth and the Moon Smiles. I'm trying to bring it up here myself.
Okay.
And I'm just going to read a few passages of it. It is by far my new favorite Flat Earth book.
I like it so far, too. You've been reading it out loud to me.
Yes, 1966, and it was just translated from Dutch to English.
To American.
American's a new language, by the way. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I do have a book, an old book called The Language of American, or the something like that, where they call it Speaking American.
Really? I didn't know that. So this is written by, now here, go ahead, you try and say the name since I couldn't say it right. Who is this?
Klaas Dijkstra.
Oh, Dijkstra.
Dijkstra.
I like De Dijkstra.
I like De Dijkstra too, but
Sounds
you're
better.
adding an I in there somewhere.
De Dijkstra. I am adding an I. Dijkstra.
Dijkstra.
Okay.
It's a silent
Klaas
J.
Dijkstra. Like that. Gotcha.
It's very cold. Imagine you're just freezing.
Yeah.
Klaas Dijkstra.
Plea for a Flat Earth and the Moon Smiles.
Okay.
It's a great book, 178 pages, but I'm just going to read you a few interesting points. Here's one of the crazy things about this book. He says so many incredible quotes by people like Admiral Byrd, and we'll go down there and we'll start there. Okay. And what I'm going to read you is just some quotes by people from the South. Because it's a little bit hard to understand when I'm reading a quote and when I'm not, I am going to say
open quote,
end quote. Just, you know,
whatever you read to me first the other night was great. That whole section.
Was I talking about the South?
You were talking about it was from the perspective of Admiral Byrd's.
Yeah, I think I'll start from here.
Yeah.
So this is talking about half year of daylight and a half year of darkness in the border region is the name of the chapter.
Okay.
So it says, wherever one finds himself in the border region, the sun depicts optically a trajectory from right to left and creates the illusion as if one finds itself at the edge of the South Pole region. This is only appearance, because who will be more in the know than the men of experience? Byrd, quote, the notion that the winter night would be pitch dark is exaggerated. A complete dark night is rather more exception than rule. During the night that should have been the darkest of all of them, that of June 21st, a narrow red band lightened the northern horizon during the afternoon, end quote. Shackleton, quote, at midwinter night there was a northern glowing with rose small clouds at the horizon, end quote. Is that even possible when a hulk of half an earth ball was in between? On a flat earth, above which in the optical bend heaven bends towards the earth, the solar image barely was lifted in the perspective. It seems in every way credible to me. Instead of a polar night on the instead of a polar night on the ring border, we call it border twilight. And in such a night, the sun will peep around the tiny corner once in a while. Shackleton, quote, "The sun, that 7 days before definitely had made its appearance for the last time, astonished us by on the 8th of May, more than half rise above the horizon, going down again, a second time arising, and to disappear in a wavering way," end quote. Thomas Henry, reporter of the last bird expedition, reports in his book, The White Continent, quote, "The one day one sees the sun too high, the next day too low, flagrantly thus in dispute with the preconceived calculations. One sees around there in optical divisions sometimes 5 to 7 suns at the same time. Quote, there appears double and 3 double sunrises and settings, end quote, and, quote, false sunrises and settings like arches on the opposite of the sun posed heaven during the midnight hour, end quote. It looks right here with the light effects somewhat different than what we so neatly completely learned in school. We found ourselves a moment ago at the Ross Sea coast. We orient ourselves for just a moment with Shackleton on the coastal area of the Weddington Sea. Quote, the sun was to be seen 120 miles further taut the south than what the refraction indexes would allow it to be. Normally, the refraction has due to if we record the sun for the specifications, height is too great. But today, the horizon is positioned so much downwards that the height of it is almost 12 degrees too low. And we got to see a couple of additional suns, end quote, according to Shackleton. And towards the end of the so-called polar night, the sun appeared already 4 days sooner than according to the Ball theoretical time schedule was expected. Bird, right across the, quote, right across the sun was the Anthelion, a countersun. Such a countersun, like a Fata Morgana, does produce light but no heat, and that the light effect gets more intensified by the white of the snowy landscape does not need any explaining, end quote. Real quick on that one. So think about the fact that we are told that there's a 24-hour sun in the south, but the south doesn't melt. So if the south is bathed in sun and the sun is the closest to the earth in this southern summer, then during the southern summer, you've got the continent of Antarctica that has a sun going right above it in a circle, and yet it never melts. Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like what they're saying, that there's a counter sun, which is a reflection or a optical illusion that has no heat.
Right.
It's a light, so the south gets a 24-hour light.
A reflection.
It does not get a 24-hour heating of the sun. The sun is going back around the other way across the flat plane.
That would explain why it doesn't melt.
That would explain why it doesn't melt. We'll continue. No, the sun does not circle necessarily in concerto around a south pole, also not around a ring border of the flat earth. Henry, the reporter of the bird expedition, reports the phenomenon conclusively totally different. Take care, he explains, quote, in the summer, the sun moves seemingly during 24 hours around the high horizon from right to left, unquote. You will surely find it justifiable that I momentarily have accentuated that seemingly. Quote, all of Antarctica, according to Henry, is, quote, is a mere hall in the sky. Dr. Sipple, lying on his knees, saw a bigger part of the Earth's surface than standing straight. He saw over the curve of the Earth. One can see ships out yonder, of which the funnels spew out smoke, on a couple of miles distance, although in reality there is no open water within a distance of hundreds of miles. Wildest mountainous landscapes, coarsely scattered around, rise at the horizon. They look like as if they are easily reachable within several hours. However, in reality, one is several weeks separated from them, end quote. This being a Fata Morgana is incomprehensible. It's also comprehensible that it concerns the mountainous landscapes of mountain ranges in North America. It is, however, incomprehensible that one on the ball Earth can observe Fata Morganas of objects which are 10,000 kilometers away. On the other hand, on the flat Earth, it becomes much more logical, don't you think? According to men which are able to know this, quote, it's a land for new heroes, a jarring door that provides entrance to a seemingly endlessness of secrecy, beauty, splendor, and danger, end quote. In this border zone, it conclusively does not look in the least like the central floating ice field that one flies across regularly like clockwork. In contrast, henceforth, with the long-lasting day in the winter center, during the European summer period, the enlarged solar orbit yields in the disadvantage of the winter center during the winter period. Right now, in the advantage of the border zone. Due to the waddling movement of the world disk, one finds themselves over there on an up and down going seesaw, through which one over there keeps an eye long-lasting on the sun, be it partly also because of the optical solar splittings. What to think about the next mystery? So one thing that's crazy there is, if people don't know, if you take a glass of water and you put a little piece of paper with an arrow on it, right? And then you set that glass of water in front of it, that arrow not only lowers, but also flips. And the crazy thing about that is when we talk about the lowering, because I say anytime you're looking out into the distance, looking through more atmosphere, you get a lowering. But people always say, but there's no flipping, so that must not be true. But the flipping is because of the curved nature of the glass. Because if you put a square glass in front of an arrow, you still get the drop, but you don't get the flip. What that leads us to is, if there is, let's take for a second the idea of a dome, or there is a curved atmosphere above our head, then technically speaking, that would reverse images. Therefore, if you're down in the south somewhere, looking up at a curved atmosphere that is acting as a lens, if you're looking through it, you may be seeing things going backwards. And it seems like a lot of that was what we're reading here.
That definitely does.
The puzzle seems to me insolvable if one wants to explain it on a spinning Earth sphere, although it is neither as simple but more plausible on the flat Earth. We can't attribute the phenomenon under no circumstance to the concrete sun. It can't have been anything different than a Fata Morgana, like those that appear repeatedly in the proximity of the White Continent, on which I conclusively attribute the long-lasting day in this region in unequal light effects in North, South, West, and East Antarctica. In the geophysical year, we resided fruitlessly in tension, waiting for a lot of news about the 12 countries' expeditions. It stayed mysteriously quiet around the reporting time. Were there too many problems? Except from the stunt of the Hillary Frukes expedition and a sporadic message from the Russians, the other 9 country expeditions remained practically quiet as a mouse. There appeared one small news item in the English press. A Navy plane flew through a mountain. The U.S. airplane reports having flown right through the spot where on the map was a 20,013-foot Mount Vinson as indicated. The plane flew at 9,000 feet altitude. From this appears clearly that serious miscalculations are at stake in the South. I predict to be added countless other losses have been released to the publicly. At the end of the geophysical year, the press expressed the complaint, science has been hindered by an extremely big degree of secrecy, with the exception of that, according to the American Department of Defense, 10 quote-unquote fleas were being found on the Harlot Base 544 kilometers south of McMurdo Sound. That was all we did get for a long time, but this has been established. Admiral Byrd already showed serious doubt about the ball shape of the Earth. In the earlier mentioned book, his reporter tells, quote-unquote, the world was turned upside down on a flat map that was tested in Antarctica. The result was that all previous maps were wrong and had to be redrawn all over. The navigation in the vicinity of the equator became almost so simple as if the Earth really is shaped as a flat plane, end quote.
Where's that Admiral Byrd book that he keeps referring to?
Yeah, we have to find it. That's the only thing I've yet to do is verify all these quotes.
Right.
I guess somebody in 1966 could have just been making shit up. Doesn't seem like that'd be a very safe bet considering the book came out in 66.
It wouldn't have.
People
It's
would be
not
able to follow
just
it up.
like it's not a smart thing to say that we decided to talk about flat Earth for money. Why would this guy write a whole book about?
Or imagine what that would do to me if I wrote a book and put a bunch of quotes in there that were fake. What would be the point of that? Everybody would see that the quotes were fake, and then
people.
Right, but then what good does it do to deceive people if they look it up and see that your quotes are fake?
Yeah.
Then you've just been outed as a
Unless
fake.
you've indoctrinated everybody already, then that would make sense.
Yeah, but he's talking about flat Earth.
I know. I was flipping it. I was flipping the situation.
Right. Well, I understand. I'm saying, why would he lie about the quotes in his book?
That's why I don't think he would.
Let's see here. So I wanted to read some other quotes about. What were the other quotes that you liked? The ones about the dogs?
The dogs. That was really cool.
Yeah, I'll do the dogs here. So this is them talking about going south, and remember all the missions that took place in the early to mid 1900s. So we'll see. Chapter 8 is the ice barrier's ring border around the flat Earth. After there had occurred already some round flights with the old North Pole at the center, it became high time that there, for the first time, also would be flown a circle from the North Pole via the South Pole back, meaning north-south along a meridian. The American Captain Odom was the first one that intended to have his name attached to this round trip. The twist of fate, however, was that the captain crashed with a burning plane, lost his life in the flames, and since that happened, and that is several years by now, there has been no successor. They pulled out of the bold venture. Bold venture? Well, it's no longer possible to be very risky anymore. Their cruising range for our modern giant airplanes is abundantly equipped for now. Anyhow, the world still waits and waits on the hero to whom the glory befalls to accomplish this victory. One will have to keep waiting, however, though, because it's not possible. Because the South Pole is not a pole, but a finite border area. Yes, it has already been in 1947 written with bold headlines in the paper, quote unquote, "Bird flew over the South Pole," end quote. Yes, that was written. Yet what was not written was that he only flew a return flight towards a certain point that they considered to be the second axial point of the Earth. Later on, the Australian Minister of Foreign Affairs enthusiastically was planning to install an airbase on the ice plateau of Gramland because this plateau, according to the Globe, is the shortest connection between three continents. If the Earth was flat, it's the contrary as the case is, of course. It's no wonder at all why that plan is, ever since 1937, waiting for realization. Like that, the Canadian Pacific Airlines has ever since 1956 an air route across the South Pole area under study. This route will connect Australia and New Zealand with Europe and the Argentine. But this also, year in and year out, is still awaited for. One does not mention it anymore, as if the idea was swept under the carpet. And to the wise ears that surely should tell something, let us now, for this moment, listen attentively to the experiences of the pole researchers Scott, Bird, and Shackleton. Right after that geophysical year, with the 12 countries' expeditions, including the Fuchs and Hillary and also the Russians, will be given a chance. Before Bird went up to the White Continent, though, he thought, quote, "Last night I have, as I have done many a night before, wondered, why exactly are you doing this? This is a time of discouraging doubt. My reason knows the answer all right, but this night there is a mysterious ancient voice that instinctively gives different answers," end quote. Bird plans were already worldly known, and he went anyway, as we also probably would have done without minding anything about our intuitions. Being aboard, he thought, quote, "There are more than 80 men with this expedition, varying in age from 18 to 68, from seamen to men of service. For every one of them I feel a heavy responsibility," end quote. When Scott neared the ring border, also in the opinion he went towards the South Pole, he talked about, quote, "the threshold of the forbidden land," end quote. This concerned the zone behind the Ross Sea. Far into the Weddell Sea, Shackleton arrived to the thought, quote, "It seemed as if the spirits of the South Pole were pointing out the way we had come and which way we had decided not to follow anymore," end quote. The catastrophe that unfolded itself after this will spare you. About the Ross Sea group, we read, quote, "I wonder why someone in this world really goes to these regions. There we are right now, during the day tormented by frost, at night frozen. Call that a life," end quote. 55 degrees Celsius below zero. Shackleton complains, quote, "The repeated cracking and crumbling of the ice that is accompanied by rustling sounds, all of this kind of ominous sound makes me be on alert all of the night and of the prospect that the ice would break. Would have confused my nerves if they had not been numb from previous events," end quote. Bird said, quote, "The storm was defined in the ship's log of the Terra Nova with 10 Beaufort, that is 2 stripes below the maximum, a hurricane," end quote. "Death came creeping close to mine when our ship struggled through the hills and valleys of that wild land of the depth. They were the utmost evil days I ever had spent at sea," end quote. Oops, I accidentally said quoted wrong there. About the compasses, the Admiral reveals, quote, "The next day I've learned I claimed victory way too soon because the compasses became so inaccurate. There was a big difference between the clues of the standard compass and the binocle compass, and the sensitivity had gotten so minimal we hardly dared to trust the first mentioned compass anymore," end quote. As the end of the flat Earth approaches, the compasses ridicule even the gyro compass that is completely unreliable over there, of course with the preconceived calculations. Humanity has constructed this instrument by its inventiveness and distrusts now the integrity of it. The whims of the compasses are not at all strange if one accounts for the right shape of our living space. The compass becoming turbulent says as much as, quote, "Be at your alert," end quote. And, quote, "Concerning the compasses, the genie is out of the bottle," end quote. Bird continues, quote, "There was 100 degrees in difference between the standard compass and the binocle compass. There is in these regions a big deflection of the compass about 100 degrees from the true position. What one means by true position is, of course, the position that one expects on a ball. Isn't it? Exactly at the flat Earth that the compass square to the direction of the north-south shows it in the true position. The struggle with the elements," stated, Bird reported, quote, "The dogs have howled the day full with a ghastly, only innate to them, reluctance. This howling never stopped and got mixed with the sound of the wind, a very strange, sad intonation. If it was caused by the misery or by fear, it was impossible to tell. The heaven knows that they are rarely all quiet, but at the moment they all bark all day long in a very discordant choir, in which oft to the fierce battle cries are sounding." Shackleton said, quote, "Twice to threefold during the 24 hours did the dog Hercules start to howl, and after about 30 seconds, the entire bunch sings along with him, a mighty, deep-pounding, harmonic ballad and a gang of half-wolves. Insignificant, question mark? Even the normal laws of the perspective are getting confused. The image in the eye starts to mutilate itself. About this, Bird says, quote, "For the first time, we had to face deviations in the field of view, that in the South Pole land mislead all travelers. In the atmosphere, an unreal haze spread, in which the eyes lost their certainty, and the mutual distance of the objects changed themselves. A heap of snow that seemed to lie right in front of us appeared in the end 50 yards in distance away. It was all confusing. Braylon yelled, quote, 'I see a peak over there, is Mount Rönniken,' end quote, and he thought the peak was 75 feet high and was situated at some distance. He started off as fast as he could move forward on his skis to discover to his great sadness that this peak did not reach any higher than his shoulders and was almost right in front of him. Just a moment ago, I stepped out of the tent and was hit again by this optical illusion. Even if I strained my eyes to the highest level possible, I could not estimate neither the distance nor the size of anything around me." Shackleton said, quote, "Everything looks unreal. The icebergs are actually hanging upside down in the sky," end quote. That even the meteorologists in the end zone of the flat earth were faced with awkward problems speaks for itself. Bird said, quote, "Whatever was brewed in the vast ice desert, even a magician could not know, because the weather is subject to sudden, severe, and unforeseeable changes, which appear to happen going all against laws, known laws and systems. And more than one meteorologist has become of these whims raised."
The ayahuasca vine is the non-psychoactive component of the South American healing ceremony, ayahuasca. It is known for its anti-parasitic properties, both physically and spiritually, and is considered the spirit of Aya. The hemp plant has been considered a miracle healer by natives around the world for the powerful non-psychoactive component, cannabidiol, also known as CBDs. These miracle plants have been reported to aid relief with everything from inflammation, chronic pain, tremors, anxiety, heart palpitations, depression, and much more. For the first time, we have created the perfect synergy of the hemp and ayahuasca plants to bring you a perfect balance of mind, body, and soul. We call this Aya Life, and you can find it at ayalife.com. That's AYA life.com.
Hi folks, Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of yee. We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Get the tea, your best defense.
Once in a decade, a true story comes along that remembers the future. After 6 Amazon bestsellers, I have completed the epic Birth Trilogy, a true story of Earth. By reading this trilogy, you will be drawn from the origin to the final destiny of Earth in a white-knuckle ride that combines the intrigue and drama of Clancy with the epic scope of Prometheus and Interstellar. You will learn more about the purpose of life, the mystery of death, and the true nature of your soul that you thought possible. The Birth Trilogy is now available on Amazon and Kindle. The audio version is a free bonus when you buy the paperback, so even if you're not a great reader, don't worry about it. I read it for you. Use the Amazon app today and buy the Birth Trilogy, spelled B-E-A-R-T-H, or search for my name. I'm Brooks Agnew.
We are TFR.
My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
then like there's video of them like falling in crevices and like flying off the thing, and like, well, somebody was filming you travel on these, and then you flew off. Just so happens that the person got this on film.
Just happened.
And then they get to the North Pole and they put the flag there and they're celebrating and they say these two people made it to the North Pole. And again, there is a man carrying a camera around.
Again.
Why wouldn't that man be given credit for getting to the North Pole?
Yeah, who was this guy?
You guys take the credit. I just filmed you get to the North Pole.
I'm just filming it.
so crazy. And they have like a cut on their head, and like, I'm getting dizzy, I can barely see.
And then he was like chronicling he was doing like selfie videos on Instagram.
That was the guy Wolson who died.
Oh, sorry, Wolsey.
Scott Worlston or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Which was crazy too, because people found it. He took a picture. He was basically going across the South, and he died during that mission. Now, again, a lot of people don't believe that.
Right.
But this is just last year, year before.
Yeah,
right?
It was just recently.
So this guy Scott Worlston, I think his name is.
Wolseley, I think.
Wolseley, that's right. And he was crossing, and he's also friends with Prince Charles and in that whole group over there, Royal Society member. He's crossing the South Pole, and he's taking pictures every day, taking little Instagram posts. Mm-hmm. And one day he takes a post and says he had his tooth knocked out, and he smiles and he's got a missing tooth. Mm-hmm. Then the next day he's got the missing tooth. Then 2 days later he takes another selfie but has the tooth back. The tooth is there then. Then the next day it's back to no tooth, and people start questioning it. A couple days later, he's almost at the end. He's like seriously 50 miles from the end, and he says, I don't know if I can make it. I think I have a little flu or something. They called an ambulance for him. The helicopter comes, takes him, and he died at the hospital. Again, you can believe that if you want or not, but I've heard people that tried calling that hospital and couldn't find the doctor that supposedly announced him as deceased. Again, if you go looking into those areas, they've protected them enough that you're not going to find out anything other than to tell people, well, I tried calling and they didn't know that doctor.
Right.
That's kind of the best you're going to get. What are they going to say? Oh, actually, no, that was part of a big gigantic hoax.
Yeah.
No, it's just not going to happen.
We lied about that. So sorry.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
No.
But when you go down south and you look at all these guys, they're all doing what this plane did, the ZQ Flyer. He got to the South Pole and they have to turn around. Yeah. For what reason they have to turn around, we don't know. Recently, I saw a story, and this is just in the last 2 weeks, that some Chinese skier skied some girl. She skied from the edge of Antarctica to the South Pole, and then she turned around and went back. And I keep saying, if you're going to go down to Antarctica and go to the South Pole, you would go across it. If why would you just go back the way you came? If the prize would be I crossed Antarctica, right? But everybody goes to the pole, turns around, and comes back. Why? Because it's a ring around us, and you cannot go to a South Pole. Now, is there some South Pole monikers? Some little, and yes, they even admit that. There's like a barber pole with a little ball on top of it, but there's a few of them around. Why? Well, because there's a lot of different South Poles if it's a ring around the Earth. Yeah. And so it just becomes, this is clearly the issue here, is that we've got a government agency that is protecting the entire South. And again, there's even more goes to it than that. Did you know you're not allowed to take fuel? You're not allowed to store fuel on your boat if you go down there. So what they're doing is limiting the amount of distance you can go. Why? Because somebody would be able to go down, start going around, and say, I just traveled 50,000 miles until I went around Antarctica. Yep. So to protect that, they tell you can't carry fuel on board. So your boat will run out of gas and you'll have nowhere to go. These are all well-constructed, hidden points, and people don't see it. They don't realize it. Even people like Wolfie, 6020, who is a pilot, doesn't realize that he can't fly across the South Pole. And I've heard people make up the excuse, well, the weather, it's so cold. No, time out. It's negative 70 degrees at the height that planes fly. So the weather of Antarctica is not changing the weather above it. It's not how weather works. No. Okay, so weather is a local phenomenon in the atmosphere of Earth. When you're flying in a plane and you're up at 40,000 feet, you have your own weather that is pretty consistent across the Earth at negative 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Yes. So this whole idea of the South being a continent would make sense. You know, there's a current thing going on. It's the what's the name of that boat again? Catharsis.
Oh, yes, Catharsis.
There's the Catharsis, and I'll get you the exact Catharsis 2. And let me get you the exact website name so you can check it out, because this is a group of people that is currently traveling around Antarctica. Right now, as we speak. You can track them. It is the Catharsis, spelled with a K, Katharsis 2. You can just look that up, or the website's name is Antarctic Circle 60s.pl. And it is a tracking site for the Catharsis 2. I'm about to bring it up and tell you where they're at as we speak, and I'll tell you the problem with this trip and what's being reported.
Yeah, what's the problem?
Well, I mean, first of all, these are the things that people need to do with an open mind. When you look at this track, the first thing you need to ask is, what kind of boat are they in? Yes. And then go look up details and facts about that boat. Okay. Not this particular trip, not this. You want to look up, what does that boat do in a day? You know, how many knots does it do?
What is the norm?
What is the normal speed of this boat? When did they start? You know, all that information. Yeah. So we're going to bring that up if they ever let this thing settle here. They're at day 86 right now, 20 hours, 40 minutes, 37 seconds. Even funnier is the thing that says, like, created by Smart Geomatic Maps. And you click through to that, and you find out that it's the same company that owns this boat. Basically.
Okay, great.
This is the funny one right here. So do you think this, I'm just looking at the track, do you think this is a track that the boat took?
Maybe the winds got crazy.
So they went backwards and then upside down. And went, no, I don't think they dropped anything. Here's the problem, or here's what I see.
Okay.
They keep coasting to the right like this.
Yeah.
They're trying to go around the continent of Antarctica. Then they have to turn left and go back, and then they go up, and then they come down because they're thinking we should be going this way, and we're going this way.
Yeah.
And you can see it constantly. They go down, back up to the left.
Leading them in the other direction.
Down, back up to the left. Down, back up. They're constantly doing it. And if you get down in here and you look at, because are they almost done? Let me see where they're at here. They are just about completed. And let's see here. Where are they? Yeah, they've actually crossed themselves, but they need to go all the way to Australia. So I think they still got a little ways to go. Okay. If we go down and we click on their little track, you can actually get close enough to see all their little area markers or their way markers. And if you click them, you can see what speed they were going at that time. Okay. And you can get over here where they are just cruising along. Looks like everything's clear. There's no sea ice or anything.
Could they fudge the data of how fast they're going?
Should say they're going faster or slower?
I don't know. Whatever would accommodate the globe. Could they fudge it or no?
Well, that's what I was going to get at, is that when you click on these, each little way marker, like I'm on January 20th, 2018 at 13:45 UTC, it says they're going 5.4 knots. Then you click the next waypoint, 4.9 knots. Then the next waypoint, they're going 5.5.
Yeah, but I mean, they could fudge that if they wanted to.
Sure, it would need to be something that was kind of well, this is why I don't think it's being fudged. They are going around Antarctica, but they're going around it the long way. Now, they have to come. Now, that would tell you that your speed is way slower than you're actually going. And boats do not go 4 knots. This is the speed that they're supposedly going here. 4 knots. Here's the thing. Huh?
It's very slow.
Very slow. That's like 4 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So you're in a sailboat, meaning you're getting the wind. Okay, now they're going the direction that the winds blow. If people don't know, you cannot sail a boat going west around the Earth. It's impossible. Yeah. Because the winds will force you backwards. You can't make it. Okay. So people who sail around the world usually go west to east, right? And that's kind of, well, I think they all kind of did that. Pretty much everybody went that way. Because otherwise it would just take you forever. You have to kind of angle the boat to get the wind to put, I don't know. I'm not a sailor. But everybody who basically has gone around the Earth, for the most part, has gone west to east. And when you do, there's a current. Now, how fast do you think a current goes? Think of a vast ocean and
like
just
10, 15 miles per hour.
The fastest, as they say, any current goes is less than a mile per hour.
Okay.
Which is just crazy if you think about how slow that would be. Like, I've seen water currents that would sweep much faster than 1 mile per hour.
I would think. But
according to everything that you'll see, it says currents are at fastest 1 mile an hour.
Wow.
So that means that these people that are going 4 knots, add the mile per hour current, is going 5 knots, which is just incredibly slow for anybody who... Now, if you're a sailor, a lot of sailors would say, well, no, that's how fast they're going. Because here's the thing. Distances and speeds are based off of...
your surroundings.
Right, and known surroundings. I mean, just like I say that planes can fly much more distance than we're told, it's because the speed is based off of what distance you're traveling and what time.
Yeah.
Well, if the distance itself is a lie, then you're actually moving at much faster speeds.
Okay.
You wouldn't know that. How would you ever know? You are told what the distance is between point A and point B.
Yes.
And again, if people think it's easy to map the distances of the oceans, then they've never thought about what they're saying. It is not easy when you're talking about the Pacific Ocean, which is huge, endless water. You can't map it like you think. How would you map it when your boat is being moved by wind and by waves? There's no mapping of that. It has to be done ahead of time. It's the whole thing with the surveyors and them saying, oh, well, we've measured the curvature of the Earth. No, you assumed that the water is curved, and then you measured the continents and made them all fit into a ball. Well, if you assume that 70% of the Earth, which is the water, is curved, then it's not very hard to fudge a little bit of land, because think about like North America. You start in California, you're down at the water level. Then it goes up to Colorado, then it goes down to New York. So that is a hump. So if you then assume that the waters on either side of it are part of a ball, then it's not even hard to conceive that you would think that the Earth's a ball. But when you realize that the waters are level, then you're going water. Then North America is a big hump or island in the middle of the water, and then water's flat on the other side. They've taken that and wrapped it all up into a ball, cut out parts of the ocean, and created this whole disaster. And now they've got people thinking that these boats, and I forgot what the size of this boat is. It's like it's a
decent size.
Huge boat. I mean, to think that that boat went 4 knots is crazy. It's just crazy to me. I don't understand how people think that. And then when you add the wind and you add the currents, I think that they could be going easily 15, 20 miles per hour.
Okay.
That's not even a lot for a sailboat in my mind.
That's what I think they are going.
So they're traveling 100 days. They're trying to do this in 100 days. So let's do 100 days times 24 hours. And that boat has 9 or 10 people on it. You'd be able to have a captain awake at all times. You wouldn't ever be just sleeping and just sitting there in the boat. Yeah. So that would be 100 times 24 is 2,400 hours. I said that I think that they could be going 15 miles per hour. And if you do that, then you get 36,000. So that's not still enough to get all the way around the outside of the Earth. No, so, I mean, that's why I think that they must be going 19 or 20 miles per hour. But then I go look at sailboats, and some sailboats go 25, 30 miles per hour. So why would I believe that some do that when others do 4? They're definitely going the way that the currents go. And we can even go check that and see what the surface wind temperature. Let's go there real quick and go to Earth.Null School, who, by the way, got rid of the AE map. Imagine that. So people who think it's crazy to think there was a map that actually showed the way everything worked perfectly on a AE layout and azimuthal equidistant north polar projection. And the person who runs the site first made the AE map not work. It just stopped working. And people went to him and said, hey, what's going on with your AE map? And he said, oh, it must be a bug. I'm not sure what happened. So I wrote to him a few times asking him, can you please put that up? And he said, oh, I'll look at it when I get a chance. Next thing you know, it's just completely pulled. There is no more AE map on the site.
He got rid of the bug.
He got rid of the bug. And, did somebody tell him? Well, I think so. At least if you ask me, somebody got a hold of him and said, hey, we don't want that thing up there because it showed rhyme and reason to the weather patterns on Earth.
Can't have that.
Whereas the globe shows no rhyme or reason. You've got speeds of the jet streams are going in the direction that the Earth spins 250 miles per hour faster than the Earth spins. Wow. So how are you going to model that? Where you take a basketball and you spin it, and the atmosphere that is stuck to the basketball, pretend that happens first of all, which should be impossible anyway, but let's say it's spinning with, how would you then move the atmosphere on the basketball faster in the direction that these basketballs spinning, in the direction it's spinning?
It would have to be spinning for 14.5 billion years.
I still don't think it's going to work.
I mean 4.4 billion.
4.54.
Yeah.
You got it wrong.
Sorry.
So we're going down here. We're going to look at the weather patterns, the air at the surface, wind down at these ocean layers. And we'll see what, so this one here shows 59 kilometers an hour. This is at the sea level. So how fast would a boat be going? 42 kilometers per hour. Wow. 47 kilometers per hour. 48, 42. I'm just kind of doing a circle around the Antarctic. 43, 45, 38, 49, 50, 46. So I'm going to go back to that site and see if we're seeing the same thing from their reports. And it shows... basically, it says wind map, and you have to open it in a new window, so I'm going to try that. And it just seems like, they take it. I hit that, and it took me to Earth.Null School.
That's funny.
That is funny. No, it's the same. So it makes no sense. How would you have winds going, and I don't know what the conversion is. I know, 46 kilometers per hour.
But we don't know how boating works. I mean, you could be sitting on a boat, and the winds be going crazy, but you're just sitting on the water.
How? If you're a sailboat?
Well, they're not a sailboat.
Yes. What do you mean?
The Catharsis is a sailboat? The Catharsis is like a yacht.
That's what I mean.
Okay, a sailboat gets pulled by the wind. A yacht does not get pulled by the wind.
I believe that you're saying that they have no power on this boat?
No, I'm saying that they do have power on the boat.
Oh, okay.
They're not pulled. They don't have a sail.
They do have sails.
That's pulled by the wind.
It helps them.
A yacht?
Yeah, it's not like a yacht with no... I'll show you to you. Catharsis 2, right?
Okay.
I'll show you the picture of it. I hope they have a picture of it. See, it's like this. So it does have a motor, but it also has this sail.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So granted, I'm not saying...
I don't know anything about boat. I don't know how winds affect
things. And I can't say I know anything either, other than I know that if you're going in the direction that the wind is blowing, and the wind is blowing at 45 miles per hour, I'm not saying you should be going 45 miles per hour, but I'm saying you shouldn't be going 4.
That's true.
That it's just impossible for me to fathom that you've got a motor on your boat which is going to push you through the water. You're going in the direction of the current. You've got sails, so you're getting pushed by 42 kilometer an hour wind, and you're moving 4 miles per hour.
So they're lying about the speed.
Who is lying?
I don't know. The data that says that they're going 4 miles per hour.
No, see, I have a hard time with people getting this. That if they don't know the distance that they're traveling, then how would they know that the speed is wrong? They think they're going.
You think the speed is wrong.
Because I think that they're traveling a much greater distance.
So then how? So okay, so their mechanisms are telling them that they're going 4 miles per hour, but they don't know that.
They don't know that they're going 4? They think they're going 4 miles per hour. Because, and I don't know how they think that, because it should be self-explanatory.
With their mechanisms, with their electronics.
Right. Let's say that me and you are going to travel a mile from here. Okay, so we're going to go 1 mile, and we're going to walk. And let's say we walk 1 mile per hour. Okay, so in an hour we should walk a mile. Now, if we didn't know that that actual distance was 2 miles, okay, so we didn't know that it's further than we think. We were just told you're going to walk a mile, and we walk 1 mile per hour. Well, if we walked that entire distance of 2 miles in an hour, we wouldn't know. We would still say we went 1 mile an hour.
Because we went a mile in an hour.
No, we went 2 miles in an hour, but we're told it was 1 mile.
Because we didn't have any independent way of measuring the distance.
No, we were just told this is how far you're going to walk. You're from here to here, and it's 1 mile. We say okay, and then we say, well, we walked there in an hour, and so we must be going 1 mile an hour. But the path that we took was 2 miles. So how would anybody be able to tell us that we were actually going 2 miles an hour unless we went and measured this distance and said, oh, it is 2 miles.
So then we must have been walking not 1 mile per hour.
We were walking 2 miles per hour. But we wouldn't know that unless somebody went and measured this. Right. Yeah. So these guys in the boat would not know how fast they were really going unless they knew the real distance. So nobody's lying other than the people lying to us about the shape of the Earth.
Yeah.
Because those people think they're traveling around Antarctica, and if they go 1,400 or 14,000 miles in a certain amount of time, you divide distance over time. That's how you get your miles per hour. And they're coming back with 4 miles per hour.
Yeah.
They must just assume that's how fast they're going. I don't know. Because
if they didn't take with them any secondary way of measuring something, then they don't have any reason.
Let's think about this real quick. Think about Antarctica on the bottom of a globe. Okay? Just think about that for a second. And think about a boat just going around it. Would that take 100 days? Going in the same direction that the wind is blowing, in the same direction that the water flows, that the currents go. How could that take 100 days?
Going 4 miles per hour.
There you go. But the problem is they're going a much greater distance at a much greater speed.
If that's your theory, and I believe that.
Yeah, my theory is they're going like this, around the Earth.
Yeah, they are. And you know who talks about that is Cook. Cook talks about how he ended up going 54,000 miles.
Took Cook 60,000 miles to get all the way around, and said
crazy.
He could never find an inlet, and all he saw was an ice barrier for as far as the eye could see.
Right. So there's accounts like that where they don't talk about those writings that he wrote because that doesn't support the globe or whatever. Which now, here's the thing. You know, it seems like every time we talk about the flat Earth, each day, it feels like it gets more and more. It becomes more and more apparent to me that people had a problem with people. It's a bigger problem than people realize, even than I realized, in terms of the whole Admiral Byrd thing. Like, I used to think a week ago that NASA, they don't really know. They know what the shape of the Earth is. They know that it's not a globe. Because of all these things that they're hiding, they hid what Admiral Byrd did and why he went on his excavation or whatever. They hid that paper, that book that his assistant wrote. And like those things, the idea of the globe versus flat Earth is a much bigger deal.
Well, and I think what it is it reveals that, again, it's wrong to say they're hiding the truth. It's that they don't know the truth.
Well, they do know it's not a globe.
Okay, so they don't know. If they know that, then they don't have any power over you. Meaning, if it's not a globe and it's a flat plane that we can't leave, then what makes NASA special? What makes the United States government special?
Well, yeah.
What makes the elite special? Nothing.
Yeah, right.
They need the globe because the globe allows scientists to think they're special, allows people in these industries to think they're special, allows people to remain in power because they know the space lie and you don't. So everything is a trick meant to keep you not knowing that there's no difference between them and you. Mm-hmm. If we all just were on the same plane and realized we can't leave here, so obviously something put us here for a reason, and we should learn and we should take care of this think of how great this planet, the shape it should be in. Imagine if all of our resources went into making this place as fantastic as possible, because we can't leave here. So why wouldn't you spend your time? Instead, these guys have created a lie and funneled money into fake ideas and fake worlds and fake galaxies that they say exist that nobody will ever see in their life. They're so smart that they've fooled people to care about planets and travels and galaxies that nobody will ever see. Admittedly, you will never see somebody step on another planet. You will never see an organization become a planet. Will never be a planetary society in your lifetime. Yet they've convinced people to drop their money for it, to worship it, to argue on behalf of it. It makes no sense. NASA has done nothing for humanity. They have done nothing. You can't tell me anything that wouldn't be here if it wasn't for NASA. It's not the microwave. Yeah, somebody would have invented the microwave probably about 2 years after it happened.
Most people invented everything that they say NASA invented. Just they give NASA the credit, not the person.
Right. And the fact, I'll say this a million times over, we provide funding for NASA. NASA then has its scientists that it pays to go out and discover things. And when they find some secret, they patent the item, and then they sell the patent to the highest bidder, who then makes a product that they can mark up the price because they're the only ones with the great technology, and then they sell it back to us when we are the ones who paid for that item. If you think that is the way that you would operate.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Hi everyone, it's Chris Gio here, founder of Truth Frequency Radio. It is with the deepest sorrow that I have to inform everyone of the passing of our shaman, teacher, healer, and fellow TFR host, William Whitecrow. William has been our guide throughout this journey, and him and Sue became like the parents we never had. We both learned so much from him, and he was on countless radio shows with us over the last 10 years, even hosting his own program, Quantum Quest. Cherie and I also share a very sacred bond with William, as he performed the Native American wedding ceremony for us on December 21st, 2012, which binded us together. As William was the sole provider, we would like to help out the family by covering the funeral expenses. Please visit tfrlive.com/whitecrow, and you will be redirected to the GoFundMe page. Or you can click on the banner on our front page. Thank you so much for your love and support.
The Cohen hearing, the Cosby trial. I'm Ann Cates. Federal prosecutors have been ordered to create a database of items seized during an FBI raid and share it with the legal team of the president's personal lawyer. Correspondent Bryn Gingras.
The judge made somewhat of a ruling today, and that ruling was really in favor of all parties involved. The U.S. Attorney's Office is now going to have to hand over all of those documents to Michael Cohen's attorneys, and they're told by the judge to sift through them, see what the volume is of those that are protected by attorney-client privilege, and the prosecutors are going to do the same. They're going to reconvene.
The sexual assault retrial of Bill Cosby continues in suburban Philadelphia with his accuser on the witness stand.
Cosby's defense lawyer grilled Andrea Constand for a second day, questioning her about discrepancies between her police report and phone records, asking her why she spent so much time with a married man and never asked about his wife, questioning why she maintained contact with him after the day she claimed he sexually assaulted her and even called him twice on Valentine's Day. Constand didn't flinch. She said on that Valentine's Day she was returning his calls, and the conversation was about the Temple University women's basketball team. As for Cosby's wife, Constand said she didn't ask about her because it was none of her business. I'm Steve Kastenbaum.
TV sitcom actor Harry Anderson is dead at the age of 65. Anderson starred on Night Court, which ran from 1984 to 1992.
You can't see me, can you?
Well, certainly I can.
How many fingers am I holding up?
There better not be just one.
Anderson also had his own sitcom Dave's World and appeared on Cheers. There is no official cause of death, but foul play is not suspected. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 213 points, the S&P up 22, the Nasdaq rose 50. I'm Ann Cates.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
And that's us. We are live, and this is Saturday night, and you are listening to the Paranormal Portal. And I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm thrilled you're here with us. And, of course, being Saturday night, let me please welcome to the show my good friend and co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard.
Hey, hola, good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever that may be.
Well, it's all of the above, depending on where you are. But this is the Portal. And we are back, and we're thrilled to be here bringing you our form of entertainment week after week, which just makes Don chuckle because he knows exactly what that means. And I know what it means too. But we do our best, ladies and gentlemen, and we hope that you're at least mildly entertained. These shows are live and unscripted and usually just winging it, but it's something that we definitely love doing. And in fact, being a paranormal show, it would behoove me not to mention the passing of an icon. Art Bell passed away this on Friday the 13th, I guess.
Yeah, yesterday.
And that's, of course, it's quite a blow because he cut the ground that we're standing on. He blazed the trail that we're appearing in. I mean, this wouldn't be happening without the contributions of him and Coast to Coast and just making it happen. And what would have normally been the toilet schedule for any show, he made it work and excelled at it. And he brought the paranormal into everyday conversation. And of course, we definitely tip our hats to Mr. Art Bell and thank you, sir, for all that you did and have done and all that you shaped in your wake. And on a personal note, I got some really tragic news today, and it's a hard thing to discuss. It's tough because after a long battle, my father passed away today, and it's something that you know it's coming. You know that it's going to happen. You know that it's an inevitability. But when that phone call happened, it's just like you go blank. You can't prep for it. You can't brace for it. It's just like someone knocked the wind out of you. And my father was a good man. He was a strong man. He was a very proud man. And he had a life of adversity, but he fought through and scraped a living and took care of a family just on sheer will alone. The man would work 2 and 3, 4 jobs at a time to keep everything going. And it was hard to watch him go the way he did. And, I'd talked about it briefly on the shows a couple of times in the past about his, he essentially had hardening of the lungs, and it was something there's really no coming back from. And I certainly love you a bunch, Dad, and thank you. So that was today. But like I said, it's not like it wasn't expected.
Everybody sends their love, Brent.
Oh, thank you. And that means the world. And I thought about not doing the show, but this is one of those things that I do, that I need to do, that I love doing. And I just, I needed to be here and to carry on, because, that's what he would have done. So he never didn't take care of his responsibilities. And this for me is a labor of love. And maybe I just needed your guys' love. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Introduce our guest. We'll take over.
Why don't you introduce our guest?
All right. Well, last minute, we got one of our favorite friends on tonight. He wants to be talking about UFOs and alien visitations. We brought on Mr. Nase. Everybody's familiar with him. Nase, how are you, bud?
I'm doing well. Bonjour Nin, Nase Indigenicaz Ojibwem, Kevin Richard Shores Indigenicaj, Shaganashi Moog, Makwa Nindun Dame, Gawababi Ganikag and Dunjubab, Minawab, Moorhead,